Hello and welcome back to Magic in the Noise. Sorry for the delay in our start time. We've been having all kinds of technical issues as it always goes.
Oh, you get
And so, sorry,
in my ear, I'm hearing
is there
a
echo?
repeat of your voice.
Do you have the live stream open in another tab?
Yeah.
So welcome everyone. My name is Sasha and this is David and we are Magic in the Noise. We are advanced professional remote viewers and we decided to do a bit of an impromptu live stream tonight. It's Saturday night and so we haven't really prepared anything formal or official, but we have decided to talk about an ARV experiment that was run on stock market data very recently. The results were just published. And I did invite Greg, who was in charge of the study, to come join us. So he may or may not pop in. David, did you want to say a few things?
Well, I'm here and I'm very tired, but I'm going to do the best I can. It is interesting, the particular study. For me, I'm an engineer, and one of the things that, and also Sasha and I are both like this, we're more about empirical data, tangible results, right? Not that normal remote viewing is not tangible, but I'm all about what the hell can I do with this stuff that's real, that I can make money off of it. I can solve like a real problem, like it's not ambiguous, right? It has to be like really nail it down. And so one of the things that I really appreciate in terms of this particular project is the willingness to collect that much data. I'm an engineer. I love data. So it's like, that's a lot of data, right? And they did take the effort to put a lot of that information out into the general public. And I'm just saying that I do appreciate that because this is something that typically is very kind of hard to find in the remote viewing community. It's like sparse. You might see something pop up every like 2 or 3 years, like, oh, there's something with actual data that I can act like real data, right? A lot of meat to it where you can kind of like think about it. So I'm just saying, like, I do appreciate it from that perspective that they went through all this work and put it out.
And we haven't really said who's doing the work or what the work is, but we're going to get to that in a second.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But also, we're going to put the link in chat after we've done a bit of an intro, so that if anybody in chat wants to jump in and, I don't know, share their thoughts, their opinions on this, you'll be able to. So first, we'll look at the data. Basically, what is this that we're here to talk about tonight? There's a group, and their company name, their website is The Time Machine, and they are using associative remote viewing, ARV, to predict the stock market. And how they're doing this is they assign 2 pictures. One picture is the price will go down today, and the other picture is the price will go up today. And then they get all these remote viewers to say, describe which picture is going to be shown to you later today. If the price goes up, they're going to be sent the one picture. If the price goes down, they're going to be sent the other picture. So they're kind of trying to remote view the future. Which picture will be the correct one at the end of the day? And that's kind of a fun way to set these things up. And so I think David and I have done a lot of experiments and studies, and we've both concluded that ARV for us is less useful. Would you agree, David?
Yes, 100%. I've used it. I've been around in the community since the late 90s doing this kind of stuff. And although it does have value, I'm not going to dismiss it. It is not, this is the first time I've actually seen where it might actually be useful, but it requires, there's caveats, right? In the study, they used how many people? It was, do you know? I know it was up to about, I think it was 2 to 300 roughly.
7,000 people.
Was it 7,000?
Yeah. Oh. So I'll go over, I'll do a little summary. Let me just put the link in chat. So I'm putting the link in chat to join in, but wait until I give a little summary before you guys can hop in. So, okay, let's get to it. David, I'm going to, if you could screen share the website, maybe the main website first. So this group did ARV, associative remote viewing, on the stock market. And what they did is they put ads out everywhere. Like, are you a remote viewer? Do you want to try this remote viewing experiment? And they paid people based on their hit rate. And so if you got 0 hits out of 20, I think you still got paid $5 for participation. And then 1 or 2 or 3, I think, hits out of 20, you got a certain fee, $5. And then if you got more hits out of 20, you got $10. And it just increased exponentially from there. David, do you have that app on your, can you bring that up and we can show the people?
Yeah, it should be there already.
Not the study, just the website that shows.
Yeah, it should be there. It should be in the queue.
I don't see it. I see the other ARV website. I'll add to stage and you can see what I see.
Isn't this the one you're asking for?
No, the homepage that explains the experiment and shows the pricing. And so they advertised to find all these remote viewers, and all these remote viewers participated. They had over 7,000 people who participated and were remote viewing. And then from their results, they would either, I guess, buy a stock or sell it, or long it or short it. And then at the end, they made profit. And we're going to talk about how much they made, how long it took. And then they replicated the study to make sure that the effects weren't a one-off, it wasn't the novelty effect. And we'll talk about what that is when we get to that point. And then in the replication study, something really interesting happened. To me, it's the replication studies that is more interesting. And so we'll look at that. And we'll try not to be too boring. So if you're in chat, and you have questions, or you kind of want us to focus on something specific, please do put the comment in chat, because I'm keeping an eye on that, and so is David. So here is the main website, and somebody's just joined. And is it Greg? Oh, it's Rustem. Rustem, we're just gonna look at this first, and then we'll add you in. And so here's the main website that they had to pitch this to people who are wanting to participate. And David, if you can just scroll down. And I'm not sharing because for some reason when I open this website, it crashes my computer. And so here were the instructions to the participants. Close your eyes, imagine a hidden random photo, and then record your impressions, and then you look at the result that you're sent. And so if you just, yeah. And then if you go down a little bit, we'll see the pay. So here there's a little bit of information about the number of trials, 700,000 trials over 2 years. And they had enough success that they decided to do this as a paid experiment, I think is what happened here. And they asked people to practice daily. And yeah, a little bit further down, here we go. So even if you had 0 correct predictions out of 20, you still got paid $5 for participating. And then you can see here 1 to 11 correct predictions. So if your hit rate was up to a little over 50%, so over chance, you were paid $5. If it was a lot more than 50% correct, then you were paid 10, 15, 25, 35, $50, $200 if you got 17, and if you got 20 out of 20, you got $500. So it would be interesting to see what the breakdown was. Maybe a histogram, a chart that shows how many people scored each of those in each of those ranges. Do you think, David?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see more data.
We'll see if, maybe we'll see if Greg can release that data, because that would be interesting to see, because it would give us an idea of, were the people who were participating mostly accurate, mostly not? What was the breakout of people? And so, EWZ says, I like statistics and data. That's awesome, because so do we. You're in the right place. Yeah. And so that's the main website that they had to entice viewers to participate. And then here's the study. So we can see here. David, did you want us to talk a little bit about this, or do you want me to keep going?
I'll let you keep going.
Okay. So here we see the chance expectation score is a Z-score of 1.7. So if the Z-score is up to 1.7, we would say these scores probably come from a random sampling where nobody had psychic ability. If nobody has psychic ability, then you'd expect the Z-score to be between 0 and 1.7. If something abnormal is happening, if there's something psychic going on, then I would expect to see a Z-score above 1.7. And so here, and in either direction, right? So it can either be people were super psychic and they were extremely accurate and they were predicting the future stock market performance, or people were super psychic and self-sabotaging and they were giving the opposite results of the actual future stock market prices. And so negative, positive doesn't really matter. What matters is how big a Z-score that you get as an absolute number. And so here we see that the research that was conducted from October to May of October 2023 to May of 2025, they have their win rate here as 50%. So that's toss a coin 50% of the time. You're going to get heads 50%, tails. So they're not, right now, this particular part of the study isn't super exciting, but we'll move on to the paper that shows the more interesting kind of aspects. So nearly 2 years, 400,000 trials conducted. Here they're saying 4,000 paid, but I think that this is right. This is the May 23rd, 2025. They just released their updated version, and we're going to look at that too. So we could maybe switch to that one.
Yeah.
And here we go. And maybe we'll let Rustam come in and say hi before we get into this.
Hi, guys.
Rustam. Hi, can you show your face so we can see you?
Thank you very much for having me. David, I know you must be very tired. I'm sorry if I have questions. I just want to say one thing, because that made me really think about the coincidence. I just made aware of this website, thetimemachine.com, yesterday, the very first time in my life. I've never heard this before, really. I was in contact with Dr. Dean Radin. He wrote a new book, The Science of Magic, and I had a few questions. And he also mentioned quite a lot about his work and about the remote viewing, and especially ARV. And I had a few questions. He said, okay, if you want to try or check, try this website and see if they have the new data. You were interested in data, try and find it. So I just went yesterday and I did some sessions. And I slept the whole day, and I just woke up and I had my coffee and I saw you guys all like, hey, very good. And lo and behold, and you guys were talking about the same thing. So talk about coincidence.
Yeah.
I'm a new remote viewer recently. I have just started doing it for a year now. And my experience with, there is another app called Remote or RV Tournament on available on for telephone, and they do exactly the same thing. They ask users to submit the data, and
except that the RV Tournament doesn't pay the viewers, so you don't get paid, and you're just doing free work, but you get to use the app. I think you have to buy the app. You pay, I think, to access the app maybe. You don't get paid for your results, but they use the data, I think, to make stock market price predictions based on your results. But that's hidden behind the screen. So you're just using it for practicing ARV, but behind the scenes, they're using that data in aggregate. And
well,
I think
Sasha,
that's my understanding of how that works. No?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, do we know that for sure? I don't know if we know that for sure.
That's my understanding. I think it's been talked about. I don't know if it's been talked about on Facebook or Discord, but I think that that's what they were doing with that one. But I don't know if they've presented the results publicly of whether the predictions that come from that are public or not, or if it's just kept in-house. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think their approach is better in my view, because if you tell the remote viewer in advance that what we are doing, then your own intentions or your belief or biases could jump in and muddy the results. So if I'm not, if I don't know what I'm doing, I have a truly blind target, if you will. So my results, in my very limited experience view, should be better. But I have done this experiment last year, and of course, the chance to get some money, I said, okay, let's try this. And ARV, like you just said, David, the results are like 50%. As soon, my very initial experiments were very successful. I was almost like bang on targets, up and down. But once I realized that I'm good, the results just went down, and that were almost like a chance. So I don't know, my own intention came in or something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting because and it's in the paper that we're sharing here. They talk about beginner's luck. It's something that we see in remote viewing. Is that people try to understand like, well, what is it? Is it because people are excited? Is it because they don't have as much expectation? Is it because there's a lot of possibilities? But typically, when you first jump in, your targets, like even if you weren't doing ARV, if you were just doing a normal remote viewing, you're trying to pull data, see a place somewhere else, what's at that place, that kind of thing. That stuff is usually pretty good right out of the gate, and then there's this kind of thing that happens where it kind of goes down. You have to bring your skill up to get it back up.
I also have a question. If you, I'm sorry, I'm jumping, and I believe if you have other guests, you can take them. Uh, how much your own intentions interfere with the future results? If you are watching, or if you're doing a remote viewing, ARV or whatever other system you're using, is there any possibility that our own intentions, biases, if I want to have something very, very, passionately in my life, and if I do the remote viewing, is it possible that I may affect the future outcomes? Can we influence the future? Is there anything you have recorded in your sessions or experience so far?
I have a comment, but go ahead, Sasha, because I think you have something.
Okay, you can take it.
Okay. Yeah, so this is something Sasha and I talk about all the time, and it's definitely a factor that can come into play. And probably Sasha can come up with some examples because I'm kind of tired right now. But in the past where we've talked about this, but one of the ones that I've seen there's a scientist called, and I always want to call him Sweet, and that's wrong. It's Charles Tart, T-A-R-T. He did an experiment with trying to predict these lights that were going off by a computer, and they were sometimes offset, which is something you have to kind of pay attention to because your results, like you were talking about before, you might find that your results are accurate, but they're offset by like 1 or 2, they're displaced in time. This is something that he came up with. But when we looked at that experiment, we could see the potential for remote influencing or influencing the machine to actually skew the results. So this is where it gets kind of sticky because it's like, sometimes it could be that you're actually influencing the result, and other times that's not a factor, and it's difficult to kind of untangle that and understand what's going on.
Well, that's very interesting. And once again, thank you very much for your time, guys. I really appreciate the work you guys doing because I think this is the future, if you will. This is where the technology and everything will lead us to the discovery of consciousness and the science. They are merging now towards this very, very exciting time in the future. And I really appreciate you guys, what you are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. And I agree. I think this is where we're at. I think psychic ability and making it more scientifically understood is the future.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just wanted to say as well, for remote influencing in these types of situations, like I know, and I've mentioned this before, but I know when I do the remote viewing lotto predictions, I don't use ARV because like David said, I don't believe ARV is a good method for remote viewing. I think that there's too many confounding factors. If you have a tiger as one image and a lake as the other, then you might be more attracted to life and the tiger is alive. If the tiger, this is something that I learned at one of the Urba conferences. If there's an animal in the picture for ARV and it's looking at the camera, people are less likely to sketch that image. So there's something that we try to avoid eye contact with dangerous predator animals. And so if you have a picture of a tiger looking at the camera, people avoid that image. And so there are all kinds of things, or if you have a star shape in one of your images, everyone's going to draw the star shape because it's so shiny. And so it's so hard to create picture sets. And a lot of groups have tried to create equivalent picture sets where both images are equally shiny, equally attractive, or equally aversive. But I haven't seen a single one yet where I would agree that each set is equally attractive or compelling or aversive. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is one of the problems. Also, the analysis of which they used in the study, they used AI, which, hey, that's good. I see a lot of use of AI, in my opinion, AI and remote viewing. They're trying to push it more towards, can the AI remote view? And it's like, well, that's interesting, but maybe there's some other more practical ways we could try to tackle the use of AI. But the analysis of your results is another thing that could be a problem, right? So even if you got the target, if you don't actually understand, because sometimes you don't get the literal, like, I drew a line. It's like, well, you didn't get that. You got this other stuff that's fragmentary, and you're like, is that the lake or is that the line, right? And if your analysis isn't good, then you could end up getting the wrong result just because the analysis isn't correct. So
Definitely.
yeah,
And that
there's
was another,
layers to this. Yeah.
yeah, that was another study. It was presented at the Society for Scientific Exploration. That's a group of university professors who secretly do psychic research on the side and try not to get caught by their colleagues or the dean of their department. Some of them are out of the closet, but a lot of them are doing it secretly on weekends. And they were talking, I remember one of the conferences, they presented this study that showed that the remote viewers themselves in an ARV study for stock predictions were less important than the judge. So it didn't matter if you had good remote viewers, bad remote viewers. It didn't matter what the remote viewer's own hit rate was coming into this. If the judge had enough psychic ability to be able to look and say, this is the image that they're drawing a little bit more clearly. And so that comes down to discernment, right? Because a lot of remote viewers in ARV, in associative remote viewing, where you're given two images that match two outcomes, a lot of remote viewers will give you data about both images. Even if you're only showing them one of the two at the end of the day, they'll still pick it because both images are entangled with the target. And remote viewing is about seeing information that you're not going to be accessing. You're not opening all the envelopes. And so that's what they saw. They saw that it was actually most viewers gave data for both. And then the discernment of the judge who decided which are they most describing, that made all the difference. So I thought that was really fascinating. And then one thing I wanted to say about remote influencing that you and Rustam were talking about earlier, when I do my remote viewing for the lottery numbers, 6 numbers or 7 winning numbers, I've created an entanglement where the matrix seems to believe that my goal is to get a free ticket. Because when I started, I would get 3 numbers out of 6 or 3 out of 7, and in Canada, I would get a free ticket, and I would be excited. Oh, yay! Because that's better than nothing. And I created some kind of a positive feedback loop. And so now the matrix seems to think that my goal is just to win a free ticket. So rather than winning the lottery, and here is the interesting thing, I win the free ticket, and then that I don't pick those numbers, right? It's automatically generated numbers. Those numbers will win a free ticket. And then those numbers that the computer chose will win a free ticket. And there's this cascading effect, and it goes on from 3 to 6 weeks, and then it kind of peters out. But it's so funny to see because I'll have this cascading free ticket win from one purchase, but none of those subsequent ones I'm picking the number for. So that, for me, shows me that I'm remote influencing the system, the number, the machine, the auto generation, the computer. And that's why, David, you just said about AI, is it remote viewing? Is it, should we even be wasting or using our time to explore that? Or should we just be using AI to do analysis, or to not do analysis, but help with analysis? This is an example where even 4, 5, 6 weeks after my initial purchase, my remote influence is still pushing the number generator to generate a lotto ticket with 3 correct numbers that creates a new free ticket win. And so I'm not actively pushing for all those 5 or 6 weeks. I'm only actively pushing on that first purchase. And so that tells me that the computer is still under remote influence from my initial push in week 1. And I wonder how that applies to AI remote viewing, whether it's really the machine or is it the person involved that's pushing. What do you think? Because that's not something we've talked about in relation to my free ticket cascades.
Your question is related to.
Yeah, what do you think about this idea of like my remote viewing on week 1? Well, remote influencing. So it's not, even if I set out to remote view the winning 6 numbers or 7 numbers of the lotto, in reality, I'm pushing so that the machine chooses the numbers that I picked as much as I'm trying to see the future and pick the numbers. I just do both. And even if I don't intend to, there's this part of me that just pushes on the machine and says, here are the numbers that I want you to spit out. And so 5-6 weeks later, I'm still having a remote influencing effect on the random numbers that are being generated because the cascade of free tickets just keeps running. So every week, I'm not intending that week. I'm not pushing the computer that week. I just push on week 1. Sometimes I don't even remember that I have a free ticket that's going to be drawn. And then I'm like, oh, right, I think that cascade is still going. And so I should check to see. And there's my free ticket.
Yeah, that's all very, in my opinion, based on my experiences outside of remote viewing, I've seen many instances of this kind of thing. What you're describing is far more complicated, and probably most people wouldn't believe it as much. Like if you're able to do something right in the moment and see a result, you're like, oh, I did that, right? So that's instant kind of feedback, right? Something like you're talking about requires a higher level of pattern awareness over a longer period of time, right? And most people don't have that level of awareness because they're not even thinking to look for something like that. That's part of the problem, right? So in my opinion, yeah, that's 100% possible. And part of what those things kind of show are to me, when I've seen this kind of thing happen, is that they're like, if you have an influence on something and you don't revisit it, you just sort of like, you do a kind of like a push and you have an effect. There's a degradation period where it will start to kind of degrade. So I'm saying, like, I've seen the exact kind of patterns you're describing in other situations. And so when you say this happened to you, and I see those, you're describing patterns A, B, and C, and I go, oh, wow, interesting. I've seen those same patterns over here, a completely different way, same pattern. So that makes me think, yeah, that's probably correct. And I see we have a question. You see that?
Yeah, but I'm just going to close it off with this first. And so I do think that for me, the evidence that I'm seeing from my own pushing of the lotto machines suggests that when people are getting some hits from a ChatGPT remote viewing, I suspect that's what's happening. It's that they are unintentionally, subconsciously pushing the ChatGPT to produce the result that they want to produce. And people might say, oh, but like, oh, that's so complex. But we know already, you don't have to understand how it works. You just have to understand what outcome you want. And the matrix takes care of how to get there. So I have a Celeron mind lamp, and it has a electronic barrier, and electrons do quantum tunneling to get through the barrier. And there's kind of a fixed rate at which this happens. But if a human pushes their focused attention onto the little electrons, or just, here's the key, onto the lamp itself, then the rate of electrons that get through increases. And when the lamp recognizes, okay, you've passed a threshold where there's all these extra electrons that are quantum tunneling through the barrier, the lamp changes color. And you don't have to understand any of that. You don't have to think of electrons. You just have to look at your lamp and say, pretty please, will you turn pink for me? And it does. And so all you're doing is saying, give me pink light. And it gives me pink light. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to think about, oh, you're going to push the electrons. No, I just have to say, this is the outcome I want. And it's the same with the lotto. I want a free ticket. That's all I want. And so the matrix says, okay, we'll engineer it this way. And it'll keep doing that for weeks and weeks on end. And so that's why I think even if you're getting, oh, ChatGPT said it was a target with a lot of diagonals and the target was a pyramid and so it's a hit. First, I would think, okay, but is that confirmation bias? But secondly, I would think, are you pushing? And you don't necessarily have to know that you're pushing. So that's my little thought. Yeah, David. If you want
I agree. This is something we kind of had discussed a little bit, was the idea that the interactions with ChatGPT, where it appears that it's psychic, is actually more of an influence by the individual, right? Which to me makes way more logical sense as to the explanation for the outcome. But it's not necessarily something I've seen considered. And it's something you brought up, Sasha. And when you said that, I was just like, yeah, that seems far more logical as an explanation. Even though it seems crazy. Oh God, how can you affect a computer, all these computers and an LLM and an AI? You can't do that. And it's like, no, you can. It is possible. It may not be something you can do when you want to do it. That's part of the problem. So in terms of like proving that I can do this, is like, well, that's hard. But we have seen it, occur, these types of things. So.
And if you wanted to do the question, David?
Yeah, I don't have my glasses on.
Oh,
so
I'll read it.
I don't want to seem old.
Rustam is asking, can we send lotto numbers to ourselves a week in the past and make it a habit if you do it every week? And will it produce numbers that are more attractive when we think to choose them next time? So can you look at the winning lottery numbers on Saturday night and say, I'm going to send that information to the past? And that's a practice that a lot of groups do try to use. What did you want to say to Rustam about that, David?
Yeah, this is totally possible. Again, it's a skill that you can build up, and you can do this not just with the numbers, right? So if you think about this in a more expanded way, and the reason to do that is that if you develop this as a skill on a broader scale, your ability to then invoke it with the lottery might go up, right? If you only use this for the lottery, it might get kind of boring kind of fast. But if you engage on a spectrum, your ability to upscale that skill might increase. And so your probability of success goes higher. So when I say that, I'm saying like you could start to have key moments in your day or week where you, in the future, like something happens and you send it back to your past self. You have to have an idea of what that structure looks like. You know what I mean? You have to have a methodology that you have to work on it long enough to see some kind of result to know that it's working right. There are a lot of pieces to this, right? But if you can stick with it, it is possible, because I've done this kind of thing in the past. And
but I do, okay, but here's the thing for lotto numbers though, because I agree with you, David. We've both done things where you're sending information back to yourself, making things shinier. But I've found often on my 5th or 6th lotto number, some of them will feel so shiny, and then that one turns out to be wrong. And then here's something that I think I've talked to you about, David. When I get the winning number list, sometimes I'll remember having chosen. So let's say that one of the winning numbers is 37. Sometimes I will remember writing that down, 37. I'll also have a memory of writing down 38. And when I look at my results, I wrote down 38 on my piece of paper, but I have a memory. And it's like the Mandela effect, where you remember the Berenstain Bear, or I remember the Berenstain Bear's EIN. And now I live in the world where it's AIN, but I know there's residue of EIN. And it feels that same kind of, it's this weird superposition of memories where I'm like, I clearly, distinctly remember writing down 37, and I have a little hook in my sevens. I do like, ding, and then I put a little cross down the center of and so I'll remember that movement. I have the muscle memory of like putting my little 37, but I put down 38. And so I don't know what that means. If you're in chat, please leave a comment and tell us what your insights are. If you're watching this after we finish the live stream, leave a comment down below, because this is a really weird phenomenon where you remember that. I don't know. I don't want to say timeline, but I will, just to be controversial. You remember that timeline where you wrote down the correct number for the lotto. And you also remember the timeline where you wrote down the wrong number for the lotto. And it's the wrong number that ends up being the one that's recorded in the reality you end up in. and it doesn't match the 38 that was. Anyway, that's my little story. If people want to share their little story, they can let us know in the chat. And so should we get into a little bit in the study, David, and maybe just talk about a little bit, and then we can come back to more general chat?
Yeah. That's a good idea. Just so we can kind of, cover the main piece.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can find the correct.
It should be there. And then, am I the one that drives that, or do you have access to it?
Nope, I have access to it.
Okay.
So here we have the abstract, and this is the timemachine.com experiment results. And it's Greg Kolotczyk. That's a Polish name. And I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so someone can correct us in chat. Correct me in chat and give me the pronunciation for that. And so here we go. So they're basically presenting their results for an ARV protocol consensus. So that's interesting as well. So they had all these different remote viewers, and then they said, okay, what are most of them agreeing on? Which target image are most of them saying is the one that's correct? Thousands of individual ARV trials. So they had thousands of trials submitted, and that's going to come up later because there were only 129 vets in the first 6 months, but they had a lot of trials. So there's a couple questions about that, but maybe if Greg is in the audience, he can join us and answer some of those questions. If not, maybe in the comments down below. And they made predictions about the price direction, up or down, for the NASDAQ future contract it was just a 1 hour period each day. Okay, for a total of 6 months. So every day for an hour, they would say, is the NASDAQ future contract up or down? And then they would submit their results. And the analysis of the ARV transcripts and targets was automated. So David, I guess that means that there was no human involved in the judging. I guess that would make sense with so many submissions.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I mean, from the process, the perspective of trying to get, be efficient.
And then a total of 500,000 trials were conducted over the 6 months between March 2025 and August 2025. So this is the study we're on the website. It talks about the 2-year study, but we're just looking at this, which was from March to August, 6 months of this year. And they had a Z score of 1.7, nearly 1.8. So how do Z scores work? I did my master's stats very many years ago. I don't know how many years ago, because I don't want to give myself away, but a lot of years ago. And so in chat, you can correct me if I'm getting some of the details wrong. But basically, the Z score is saying, look, is there something that's anomalous or not? And how far it is from the center line tells you how weird this outcome is. So if it's a positive, 1.5 or negative 1.5, it means this result I would expect just if I were getting random population data and there's nothing psychic going on. And then the further it goes farther from that center line, then the more you're like, something weird is happening. And I'm just explaining again because we have new viewers watching. So I just want to make sure that's kind of clear, because I think that this is important to know to be able to interpret what the study is even saying. And so every trading day, the consensus from 1,000 to 5,000 trials was used. So they were getting in, they got in 500,000 trials, but they were only using 1,000 to 5,000 trials a day. So again, it would be interesting to find out, were they using the trials from people that had a higher hit rate, a lower hit rate as they were going through the experiment? How were they picking which trials they were analyzing? Or is it just that of the people who submitted, they were only receiving 1,000 to 5,000 trials a day? I kind of want to know what's going on there. And then those trials were used to make a prediction about the NASDAQ long or short trade for that day. And if you're not too familiar, so long is the price is going up and short is the price is going to go down. Overall, 75 profitable trades out of 129 trades resulted in a statistically significant Z score of 1.85. and theoretical profits. This is important if they're theoretical, because that means money wasn't involved. And when you involve money in remote viewing, then you tend to get slightly different results because emotion gets involved. The matrix keeps an eye on things and maintaining equilibrium. What do you think about that, David?
Yeah, definitely. My experiences have indicated we're in a simulation, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's just a concept, and that there is a governing matrix, if you want to call it that, that does keep things in check. I can give like lots of examples of that or through my own experiences, but yeah, it's money for different reasons, because it can be the matrix, but it can also, like exactly what you said, it can be the individual all of a sudden skews their whole psychic ability or skill set because they're emotionally involved, or there's just lots of other possibilities that start to come into play when you start to involve the money component. I've seen it firsthand. It's interesting. And so, I mean, I have some ideas on countermeasures for that kind of thing, but I'm not going to talk about them here. But yeah, anyways, it's interesting. Now, in terms of the trial, so like, I come from a corporate environment. I'm an engineer, and I'm just going to say, like, this is where my mind goes in the corporate environment. We have to defend our positions, whatever they are, for whatever experiments or testing that we're running against other engineers. And they try to pick holes in it, right? Because it's a positive thing, because if the other engineers go, well, I have a question about blah, blah, blah within your data, and you don't have an answer for it, it could be that they're correct and your data is wrong, or your thinking is wrong, or it could be that you just need to go back and collect enough information to fill in the gaps to strengthen your case. So over time, what happens is you have stronger and stronger cases that get presented to the public, or that they can make decisions on. And so this process of kind of like picking something apart and going like, this, you have this gap here, and that could mean this, or it could mean this, but I don't know because you didn't collect the data. Probably should go back and get that data so we can tell which way, because if it goes one direction or the other, this whole thing is a waste of our time, or it strengthens your argument, and we want to do this kind of thing, right? So I'm always looking at that from that perspective on anything like this where there's data, trying to understand what it actually means. So like a sampling size, and I haven't had stats. Sasha has, so she can tell me, but my understanding with like an engineer that hasn't had stats, yeah, that's true. But I know of it, and I've kind of worked with it. But 500,000. That's like, so sampling sizes are important, right? If you have a tiny sampling size, you can get a result that looks incredible, but then you go to a larger size and it just disappears. The whole pattern just kind of crumbles because in a larger framework, it doesn't hold up. It's not strong enough because there are mitigating factors with small sample sizes. So I'm saying, hey, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a huge amount, right? And this is one of the things that I think with ARV is important. In order to pull this off, I think you actually do need that kind of data, right? That large volume with ARV. I think it's required. But the problem with that is getting enough people to contribute that volume, right? And Sasha and I are the mindset like, hey, as individuals, we can solve these problems, and we proved it. So like with ARV, it's usually a 50-50 thing. You're not going after a number. You could, but I'm saying it's way more complicated. Usually it's just sort of a yes, no kind of thing, up, down, yes, no. It's a real simple kind of result is typically how they focus on it. And Sasha and I go after directly, try to get the numbers themselves, which is not something ARV generally does. And so I'm saying there's a difference in the way that we think and the difference between how they do this with ARV. But, and that's why I'm saying that the larger number to me is required with ARV, whereas the way we do it, you can bring it down to much like one person with not 500,000. You might need a lot more, you might need a lot, but not that much.
And I think that's a good point to make. Yeah. So David's coming from an engineering background where you tear apart people's work to find the flaws, to find the weaknesses so that they can correct them so that your product is good. You don't want a bridge that collapses. You don't want a video game that just crashes. And so you need to have that honesty of saying, okay, here are the flaws that I found in your work. And then now let me help you fix them, or now go back to your team and fix them. So it's not a personal attack. I come from an academic background where That's your job. That's what you do. You publish a study, you spend a year putting something together, and then you publish it, and then 7 people read more than the abstract. And then for the next year, everybody who read more than the abstract is going to be trying their hardest to disprove what you concluded. And then they publish a paper saying, you're wrong, and this is why, and here's our data. And that's just academia for you. And so it's also not personal. And so what we're doing tonight is not a personal attack. It's not an attack at all. But we do want to look at this and say, here are the strengths that we see, and then here are the weaknesses. Because it's important for 2 reasons. One, we want to encourage experiments in remote viewing. Like David, you were saying earlier, if the future is consciousness and understanding its effect on the real world, then we have to do it in a way that's legitimate and provides outcomes that you can replicate. If you can't replicate it, then it's just a cool anecdote or it's a cool anomaly in the data, but it's only a scientific outcome if other groups can do it. If you can do it again and again and again, and you're getting a similar result every time you do it. So we're going to talk about that again later. But so we just want to be clear. We're not going out. We're going to be looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. And so one of the strengths is the number of trials. We haven't really seen that published before, ARV experiments with that large number of data. And I would like to see the raw data. It would be nice to see if they have it in a digital form that's easily accessible. That would be interesting. I would also like to see the AI's analysis, because if they're using something like an LLM as pattern matching, again, is it just the judge, in this case, the AI, is the judge the one solely responsible for the outcome? Or is it actually the remote viewing data, right?
Yeah,
and then the other thing
that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you. And then the other thing I just wanted to put in quickly about the money and the sabotage, Brett Stewart has done significant research on figuring out how to use remote viewing to make money without letting self-sabotage get in your way. And I think he's done a good job of it. And he talks about it sometimes, but he had to do a lot of personal work, I think he's talked about publicly, to get past his own barriers. And what I see a lot of, and I've seen it in different topic communities, but I see it in the remote viewing community as well. There are some people who hate rich people. They hate the rich. They resent the rich. They blame the rich for their own situation of maybe poverty or whatever. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying this is what they do. So then if they start making money, they have to get rid of it as fast as they can. They have to spend it, they give it away, because otherwise they start feeling like they're on the path to becoming rich, but they hate rich people and they don't want to hate themselves. So there's kind of this, they want to be rich, they want the luxuries or the freedoms that having a lot of money affords you, but they hate rich people. And so they also don't want to be rich. And I think that can get in the way. If you're remote viewing and you hate rich people, and then you're trying to remote view lottery numbers or sports betting outcomes or stock prices, then you're subconsciously not wanting to get the correct answer because you don't want to win money. Because if you win money, then you might end up rich, and you think rich people are scum. You don't want to be scum. So there's that really weird psychological aspect. And if you have one person in the group that feels that way, if they are the dominant personality or the dominant consciousness in that group, they can entrain the entire group to their outcome. And we'll talk about in a little bit about group effects. So I just wanted to add that, David, to your little talk about self-sabotage when money's involved.
Yeah, and we had talked about remote influencing, an individual affecting a machine or something, right? But here's another instance where people might not consider the potential for an individual within a group actually influencing the rest of the group, right? It's not something that would just occur like, I'd never thought of that, right? Most people wouldn't cross their minds. So the point is that there are many possible factors, both internal, external, and you have to really kind of take a lot of time to really think about what's happening in order to maybe isolate the the pieces that might actually be blocking you and your particular situation from achieving your goals.
Yeah. And EWS, use ooze. I just want to say this is someone in chat. Every time I see your handle, it makes me think of female sheep. Use. And so I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that or if that has some kind of meaning as an acronym. I apologize if I'm not recognizing something obvious, but he's asking to tell him more about the information on self-sabotage from Brett Stewart can be found. Brett has changed it. He used to have the Technical Intuition YouTube channel, and he had a lot of remote viewing videos on there. And I think he's taken most of them down and maybe has this new kind of business direction on there now. He's doing AI movies, and he's really gifted at that. And so I don't know where that information is available, but if he wants to come in and chat with us about it, we could do that here and have an interview and talk about that. I'd be happy to do that. And then you're also bringing up the idea of there are other groups that are also aggregating databases right now. One of the things that I'm seeing, RV Tournament, the Time Machine, this other group, they tend to be open to all. And that includes skeptics. That includes people who have never remote viewed. That includes people who think remote viewing is, oh, I dreamt about the future last night, and that means I remote viewed it. It's a psychic happening, but it's not remote viewing because remote viewing requires a target, and there's a certain protocol. And so that's something to take into account. I don't know how much it matters, though, because of the novelty effect that David was talking about earlier. The novelty effect is well documented, and we do see it again and again and again, where people who first learn to remote view, or even honestly, if as a remote viewer, you take a long enough break from remote viewing and then you come back to it, you get this bump in your results. But what I found is once you hit a certain threshold of ability and skill, not ability, let's say skill, then you're fine. Then you're kind of hitting your performance marker all the time. And so it's only when you're first starting that you kind of, oh, I'm doing super well. And then, oh, no, maybe not so well. And then you have to kind of work your way back up to super well. But then you can kind of, if you maintain it and if you're using proper protocols, you can maintain that level of performance. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, it's amazing. Remote viewing is one of the few psychic based focal points that allows you to control the outcome by using more of a scientific method in order to achieve a repeatable result. And so what that means, and because it is real, because I've done it a bunch of times, and I know it is from my own personal experience, that you can increase your skill. This is the thing that's amazing. Is like you could be, you have people who've never had any experiences whatsoever, and then they'll do remote viewing and they're blown away. Oh, I just had a psychic experience. And for them, that's super profound and it's awesome. But the other part of that that's really intriguing is that it's not like a one-time thing. If they really want to put in the work, they can potentially achieve consistent results where they can have that experience controlled whenever they want it, essentially, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to say that. And then there was something else, but it's kind of escaped me. So maybe we'll go back to the study and look at a little bit more of the data. The other group. So here's what I'm finding interesting. So there are all these groups that are asking for public remote viewing submissions, and then they're using them for their own purposes behind the scenes, maybe. Some of them more openly, some of them not. It's unclear to me where the money's coming from. It's unclear to me where the funding is coming from. So that's one of the reasons I was hoping Greg could join us for today's live stream, is because I'm curious about who's giving $100,000 in funding for the study. And then I think another $100,000 for the replication. The initial study was 6 months, and they had a 217% return on investment. So they made, what was it, $171,000 theoretical paper money or paper trading. And then in the replication study, they lost $87,000 in 2 months. And so I kind of want to know before I don't know, to be more open to be able to see, are there vested interests? Are there any biases that are being put in subconsciously, consciously? I kind of want to know who's behind the money, who's putting the money for this. And it's the same with the other groups that you're kind of talking about, these other groups that are aggregating these remote viewing results. They ask for your email. So they have your email address, they have your remote viewing ability, they have the AI ranking you. So how good a remote viewer are you? What's your hit rate? Who are you? Where do you live? They have your IP address. And so for me, that's awesome that there's all this ARV data being collected. What's less awesome is who is putting up $100,000 in exchange for access to this information. If you're a really good remote viewer, what are the implications of giving your email address, your IP address, showing your skill level and your rank amongst other remote viewers to some unknown group that might be selling it to other unknown groups or intel agencies? I don't know. We don't want to get kicked off YouTube. What do you think, David?
Well, again, these are all just interesting questions to kind of ask and to be open-minded about. For me, my perspective is, years ago, decades ago, when I was doing this stuff, I was getting training from one of the Stargate people, and I'm trying to remember exactly how they said it because it's a long time ago. But essentially, the idea here was that anybody who took any remote viewing training was essentially on a list, is what I was told. Now, whether they're right or wrong, there's no way for me to know that. But they were ex-intelligence, not just military, like outside of even they had multiple levels of intelligence access. And I tend to believe that would be the case from looking at the declassified documents. Everything we've seen from those would seem to be that way. The other part to that conversation, though, is something we've talked about for a while, which is the perspective that there is a potential push that we're seeing from different groups and organizations that are starting to come out. So the caller from earlier, and I forget your name, and I apologize for that, but they are, what's that?
Rustum, but go ahead. I didn't mean
okay, to yeah, okay, thank you very much, because I want to be respectful. Again, I'm really tired. The point of this is to say that we are seeing indications, we can point to it, Sasha and I don't know that we want to talk about it publicly for different reasons, but we are seeing evidence of corporations and other organizations that appear to be having a focal point on psychic ability, like they are starting to bring this out as a real thing, like that it's important to them. And they're starting to kind of warm up the machinery, and they're starting to get their organizations together and starting to find the right people, and they're starting to get the percolation within the environment. Because we've had things like, as an example, that are public. We've had the Jake Barber stuff where he's talking about psionics, people who are psionic assets, right? Well, that's in the category of remote viewing. It's kind of in that area, right? And other things like that we've seen come out just recently, and also from the UFO stuff in Congress. They have brought up remote viewers as well, just recently in the last 2 years. So I'm saying there's something happening. And so when Sasha says this other thing, which is hey, there's these tournaments and other things that are going on. What's the larger picture? Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to know who the different players are, what their interests are, that kind of thing.
And where the data is ending up, because you might think, the U.S. intel agencies, I'm in line with what they're doing. But do you know that it's only the U.S. intel agencies that are going to end up with the rankings and the data? And so just things to think about. And also, I've noticed as well, some websites, because I have a good antivirus protection system, and maybe it's more advanced than some that other people might use. I have a lot of trouble with a lot of remote viewing related sites. The Psy Games one, I couldn't even access on my computer because my security system was like, no, we're not going to let you open that. So I had to ask David, can you go to the website and tell me what it says? So just little things to kind of keep in mind, I guess. But let's look at a little bit more of the study abstract. I think that'd be interesting. And again, for new people who've joined us, if you want to join in the on air, you can. If we know you, well, if you're a complete stranger, we probably might not add you in, but if we know you, we probably will. So we're talking about this study. We're talking about how they have 1 million ARV trials for remote viewing the stock market. And then they made theoretical profits, so not real money, just paper trading. And then the theoretical profit earned during 6 months resulted in odds. Oh yeah, the odds against chance I'm less concerned about. It's just I don't want to be spitting out a lot of numbers at you. It's just gonna numb your brain. But the profits generated over the first 6 months was $241,000. And unexpectedly, and this is so weird, it was discovered that if the top 3% of the highest scoring trials were removed before analysis, the win rate for the trading actually improved. And it went from 50%, which is toss a coin, to 60.5%. And so that's really significant. So 2 things that I really want to stress here is, one, they made a 217% return. So they made $241,000 off of their initial investment, but it was paper trading. For the first one, we're going to talk about the replication in a second, but let's just look at this first. And that the top 3%. So what does this mean? The top 3%, if those, the highest scoring, most confidence that, okay, everybody is converging on this image. If you remove those, your win rate goes up. You make more money. You're more accurate. What happened there? So it looks like a group effect. So what happens is, when you work with a group, you start getting resonance with other group members. And that can enhance and amplify your access to target data. But what can happen if you're not careful or if you're not skilled, and I think especially because they were using unskilled people. If you're unskilled, you don't necessarily know how to protect yourself or how to kind of guard against it, or you maybe don't have the confidence. You're kind of just fishing in the psychic ether and looking for information. And if you happen to get it from the target, awesome. But if you get it from one of your team members, also awesome. But then you're not getting real data. You're just copying someone else's homework without even knowing it, right? And so what you have in groups is you'll have a group effect where one person will draw, if there's a picture of a bunny and a picture of a tree, one person is afraid of bunnies, so they're going to draw the tree because they're avoiding the bunny. Even if it's the right one, it doesn't matter. They're running away from the bunny, so they're drawing the tree. And this is all happening at a subconscious level. So they're only aware of getting tree information. And they're so strong in their coherence that everybody in their group will only draw the tree. And we've seen that again and again in remote viewing groups. I participated in an experiment that was run by Daz Smith of FFG that was on the Discord server, the remote viewing Discord server. There was 6 or 7 of us participating, and we were doing an experiment on unitary ARV, whereas you say, if the price goes up, you draw the tree. If the price goes down, you draw anything other than a tree. And I think Dad just wanted to see, can you get unitary ARV to work, and is it better than ARV? Because then you don't have 2 images to conflate. You have 1 image and then anything else. And I think it was 4 weeks in, maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, we hit the group effect. Every week we were all drawing the exact same outcome pretty much. And it was after that the group effect kicked in, it was the wrong outcome. So David, you weren't part of that, but do you have thoughts on that, or is that amusing?
Well, again, for me, I'm very analytical, so all this stuff is important if you're trying to increase your skill level. But it's not necessarily things that are as strongly talked about. I mean, sure, you hear it occasionally, but I'm saying like there should be some repository someplace where this stuff is well known, because it's you don't want to get tripped up by it, right? It's interesting. Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and so I think so basically they found the exact same thing in this study. And one of the things that I like about you and I, David, is that we are both strong-willed and we both have a high level of coherence in our own different ways. And so I find that when we do the same target, I don't see that contamination. I don't get dragged into your data. I still get the kind of like my data tends to have a Sasha signature to it. If you showed my data, even if it wasn't in my handwriting, I'm pretty sure, David, you could tell it apart from anybody else's data. And so I can see in my sessions that even when you and I work, we don't typically get dragged into each other's data. And that's a nice thing, because what it means is that there's more power to, if we're both describing something very similarly, there's more power to that, because we know it's two independent observers. Whereas if you have a group effect and there's too much coherence, you want some coherence, can be really nice, but if you have too much coherence, then you're not looking at the target from two different perspectives. Every person is looking through one set of eyes, and that one set of eyes has that bias and that person's their prejudices, or right. And so if it's an orange circle and that person is hungry while they're doing their remote viewing, so to them they just, oh, it's a fruit and it's an orange and I can taste the orange juice in my mouth. Then if they contaminate everyone's data with the fruit of a citrus fruit, then people who would otherwise not fall into that trap, they're going to start talking about citrus fruits. And so that's one of the flaws in having these group effects. And so we can see here in this study where they had 7,000 remote viewers remote viewing, and then where they had the most coherence, where everybody was saying, it's the tree, it's not the bunny, the tree is the picture. Those were the most likely to be wrong. So I want people to really think about that. So the ones where you have the most confidence, the computers, AI is telling you, I looked at all 5,000 trials, all 5,000 submissions, and I can tell you that 99% conviction, confidence that everybody is describing the tree. And that is when the tree was the wrong outcome. If the tree was up, the actual price went down. They should have been drawing the bunny, and they lost money on that day. I find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, Sasha, in your little experiment with Daz, how many of those individual viewers were what you would consider to be very advanced versus beginner or intermediate?
We were all, I would say, pretty much beginners. We all thought we were intermediate, but now that I'm at the level,
I understand.
Now I have the hindsight to say we were all at the beginner.
I understand. Yeah, you can't see. Yeah, you have to a certain level of maturity. You can't tell until you're higher level of maturity. You're like, oh, but yeah. So the point I'm making with that is that you guys saw that effect, and I'm wondering if you had much more advanced individuals working together, if you would not see the effect. So the reason I bring that up is the idea of this kind of an experiment where you have, 500,000 trials over 6 months. You are probably not going to get, there's very, like, in terms of advanced viewers, it's not like we have tens of thousands of them in the community, right? It's like, no, that's not like that.
Do we even have more than, like, do we even have dozens of highly? I don't.
That's a debate. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying, because most people, they find it to be interesting and then they just kind of move on to something else. So they're not around for a long time. But the point I'm trying to make is, so you're likely to get in these studies beginners or maybe intermediate. Maybe you'll get a few advanced people. Most of them will be the other category, which means they may be more susceptible to this kind of problem, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And 3% is quite high when you're looking to increase yourself above, right? If you're getting mostly chance results and you're just trying to eke above that to prove something, and 3% of your trials where the confidence is highest are predicting the wrong outcome, that's pretty significant. Someone in chat, CRL44423, says, I don't think I trust AI judging of RV sessions. And speaking for myself, I 100% agree with you. I also would not trust an AI to judge RV sessions because there's metaphor, there's sometimes even just different layers of meaning. And I also, yeah, I'm with you, David. What position do you take on that?
Yeah, of course. We've already seen that, the military where this came out of, they were focused on literal. And it's like, well, that's great. But the problem is the reality is that you have metaphor, concept, literal, simile. Like you have all these variations of data that are 100% legit. So if you're only looking at a tiny fragment of the whole spectrum of data through the lens of analysis, you can get a skewed result because that may not be the right pipe or filter to look through, right? You have to and so if you don't know any of that and you don't program the AI, and the AI has to be smart enough, even if you can program the AI might not be at a point where it can even deal with, the full spectrum of the aspects that it needs. So it's very challenging. However, trying the experiments and seeing what happens, that's how you learn. So, I mean, I'm saying like, that's good. But yes, in terms of a broader mindset, yeah, I agree. You need to think about this a little broadly in order to get probably a higher level of success.
Definitely. So yeah, so I do think it's interesting, the 3%, where the confidence was high, and it's the top 3%. So that means when the confidence was highest, when everyone was converging on an outcome, they were converging on the wrong outcome. So what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think that means? What are your experiences with that? Leave a comment down below, because I'd like to have a kind of a wide spread sense of what people's experiences are, what their insights are, because it's a really surprising, I think, result. And a lot of people don't know what to make of it. So they just hand wave it away. They just dismiss it. I don't know what that means, so I'm just going to ignore it. But you can't ignore that. It's telling us something about the matrix, about how remote viewing the future works, how remote viewing money predictions, finances, stock markets. This is information that's useful. So let's not just ignore it because it's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look
So
at this study. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was just say let's go on another chunk so we can try to get through this.
Yeah. So do you want to go to the next page?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know. I don't think we need this piece, do we?
No.
And this piece.
Nope.
You want to go to
Nope.
the chart?
Yeah. I think so. Okay, so here's kind of the formal data. Okay, so 6 months, ARV trials conducted. And again, this is not clear to me. So 500,000 trials of ARV were conducted. 1 to 5,000 a day were passed through an AI that made judgments and analysis on them. Of all of this data, only 129 predictions were made. So is that because in all the other days, the computer said, unclear, that I'm just pass. Don't predict a long, don't predict a short, just nothing. Just don't do anything today because the data is not clear enough. I wonder, is that maybe what it means? Because that's not a lot of predictions, 129 when you have 500,000 trials, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And based on my experience with ARV and groups and stuff like that, it can be very difficult because again, skill level comes into play. So if a person can they get hey, it's sloping and diagonal and dark, and they don't say that's a mountain with a house that is 2 stories that has 3 cars in the driveway. They don't get that, right? They get little tiny fragments. And so this is where typically it's very difficult to collate that and to understand, because you're like, well, a diagonal there's sort of a diagonal in the swimming pool on one photo, and there's kind of a diagonal in this other, part of the other photo. And so I don't know if I can really distinguish that that's a distinguishing feature, right? So you have to wait for enough people to get something that's specific to that photo, right? And that's where the challenge comes in. And so I'm just saying that logically tracks, although it would be nice to kind of know from the Greg, what happened.
Yeah. And one thing I want to note here, this is why, as a remote viewing instructor, I really discourage people from doing too much ARV, especially when they haven't done a lot of standard remote viewing. Because what I find is with ARV, people get used to just jotting down a couple things. Oh, it's yellow and it's sharp and pokey, and that's it. And then that's enough for them to say, was it the flour or was it the milkshake, right? And so then they get used to doing this really lazy remote viewing where they're not providing useful information as a remote viewer. They're just providing a few data points for matchy, right? For playing Go Fish. So that's a bit of an issue. And I think I have seen it degrade people's skills as a remote viewer when they do a little bit too much of ARV, they get a little lazy. Okay, so the numbers of trials used to form a consensus. So in order for the computer to say, okay, go ahead and either buy or sell or buy a long or buy a short, they had to have 1 to 5,000 trials. Okay, that might make sense as well. So maybe on some days, not a lot of people submitted and they didn't have enough to use for consensus. And then, yeah, like we said earlier, the question was, will the NASDAQ index futures price from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. on this day go up? And it's a yes or no. If yes, describe this image. If no, describe this image. And the Z scores, they're really talking a lot about the Z scores. The Z scores are not as informative, let's say. But it is good to know. So the Z scores of trials that were correct in predicting the outcome. And the reason I say that is because they're looking at the Z scores for, it seems to me, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that they're looking at the convergence on an outcome. And because we just finished talking about how that wasn't related to accuracy. So if 5,000 people describe the tree, that's awesome. Everybody described the tree. But if the tree is the wrong picture to draw, it doesn't match the outcome, then that's a little bit of a problem there. And then for those 6 months, 58% of trades were profitable. That's amazing for an ARV study. Would you say, David?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because I think Dean Radin, who publishes a lot of books on remote viewing, remote intention, remote influencing, and his books that he published, I don't know, 15 years ago, old books, they're typically proving, 51% or 52%, and celebrating that as, oh my goodness, we did better than chance using our psychic ability. That was a huge win 15 years ago. And today we're sitting here and we're talking about a 58% win rate. That's pretty significant when you would expect maybe something lower if you were just, but here's the tricky thing with this though. I'm going to put both our faces on for this because I really want people to think about this a little bit more carefully. When you're doing, and this is why few people do these kinds of studies, because if the market is just going up, if you're just in a bull market, then it's exciting, it's awesome. People who are maybe involved in this study, maybe some of them are interested in the stock market. So you're going to get more positive emotion from buy a long, right, position. If the price is going to go up, that's more exciting, that's more fun. And so if the market's going up and if emotion is helping to guide the results, that might explain some of the hit rate. And it would also explain why the replication of the study failed so terribly that they cut it short. And we're going to talk about why that makes all of the data unusable, even this 6-month trial. But so there's a confounding factor there, right? What do you think about that, David?
Yeah, there's those aspects. There's also the question that I would have, which we don't know, but to me it would be logical to actually do it, is the idea of using trading technicals in combination with guidance from the psychic, combining the two together, right? We don't know. That's not mentioned in the study. So it's like, was part of the success because they were combining technical trading with what they were getting from the psychic aspect, and they were doing better technical trading analysis. Like you said, the market was going, like the conditions were, because the market conditions could have been good in the first 6 months and abnormally choppy in the second period, right? That's 100% possibility. Maybe that's why it got messed up on the second one. Or was it maybe they had multiple technical analysts and they had somebody that was good in the first 6 months and brought in somebody else in the second? And I'm not saying that's what they did because I don't know, but I'm just saying like these are sort of different pieces of information or ideas or perspectives that are good to consider as to why something might have been a problem or been successful.
And even just look, if the market's going up, then between 7 and 8 a.m. and again, even just the time of day is a bit of a confounding factor, to be honest, because it's easily manipulated. You would pick end of day on a down market. You would pick beginning of a day on an up market. So in the morning, the traders wake up, especially because it's the NASDAQ. The traders wake up in the morning and they're all excited and they all want to get in on trades because, and this is a testosterone thing. And I'm not saying this from bias, but studies have actually shown this. You know, the guys get up and they want to place a trade. And instead of waiting for a buy signal, they're just, I don't want to keep sitting in my computer not buying. So they'll just place a buy. They'll justify it to themselves, even though the signal's not indicating. And so if you're in an up market and you're buying, and if people have a tendency to pick the image that is associated with an up price, then I would say, yeah, if you're in an up market, then you don't even need to remote view. Just keep buying along. Buy along every morning. The price is going to go up in the first hour, right? Because, and also most of the time, if you buy at 7 and sell at 8 a.m., you're going to buy along because all the traders wake up, they get in, they're excited, they're hoping to make money today. So they're all going to place longs. The market price is going to go up. And then at 10 a.m., news is going to come out. Elon did something, or this CEO said something, or Michael Saylor did something, or, the president tweeted something. And then people, they're hungry. They haven't had lunch yet. They start to get anxious. They start thinking about their bills they have to pay. And so the day traders start selling. So then there's more variability at the end of the day price, right? But when you're just looking at opening price, and if it's a bull market, then just buy along every morning. And so I wonder if that had a part to do with it. And then when they tried to replicate the study, was it in a bear market? And so then the remote viewers keep saying, it's going to make money, buy along. And then, oops, those were wrong. And they lost $87,000 in 2 months. That I think might be part of what's going on there. But again, I would like to talk to the guy in charge, or at least the contact for the experiment, which is Greg, and kind of find out more from him.
The other thing you just said, which again, I don't know how many people would even think about it, would be the concept of entrainment, right? So if the first group kind of built up a momentum, which is part of what you're describing right now, right? But I'm saying like add in another possible factor, which is entrainment. What if the group has entrained themselves in a particular trajectory and then the market shifts, but they're still entrained to that trajectory, right? They're locked onto it, right? Then that could be another reason why there was a deviation from what had occurred previously.
And that might explain the 3%. What might be happening is people are not remote viewing the market outcome. People are remote viewing which image is associated with the price going up, because that's the one that feels good. Right? So yeah. I would want to see the raw data to see how many trials predicted that the price would go up. And that I think would be, maybe it would give us more insights. So again, this is the kind of analysis that I think needs to be done on these kinds of studies to advance remote viewing as a field, because we need to better understand these things. If we just look at this and say remote viewing works at 217% return on investment for the first trial, that's a problem, because then we're not learning from the data. We're just kind of losing the opportunity to really use the data that's being made available to us. And so theoretical profits earned 265,000, actual profits earned 241. And so that's confusing to me as well. And maybe that's explained later in the study. Theoretical profits versus actual profits. Now, I'm not sure if this is because of slippage. So slippage is, you put in your sell price. So you say, okay, maybe the remote viewers are saying it's going to go up today or down today, and you say, okay, I'm going to sell at this price, but then you put that in, but the actual price you end up paying is slightly different, just because of how fast orders, especially now with so much AI trading bots. There's a bit of slippage in price, so you don't always get the price that you're wanting to when you're selling or buying. I don't know if it's because of slippage or I don't know, but and then is this paper trading that would have given them 265,000, and then they were actually trading real money? They really did put in $100,000 of real money invested into this, and they made 241. Maybe it says it later in the study, but let's keep that in mind to look for that answer. Yeah. So if you want to go ahead to move to the next. Oh yeah, and the Z score is oh yeah, we're gonna see it here, I think. Yeah. And the odds right now, we're not really looking at that. We can talk about that in a separate conversation if we want to. And so 500,000 trials, the targets that are correct in predicting the outcome were significant. So, but the targets that were incorrect in predicting the outcome, oh, there the Z score was not significant. So that's really interesting. What do you make of that, David?
So it's basically saying the ones that weren't successful or didn't contribute were more normal in terms of random. And the ones that did make profit tended to be skewed from random.
Yes.
And and the screen is so small, it's hard for me to see anything on here. So I'm just listening to you explain it to me. Yeah, I mean, that's
like it was a significant skew. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is the first trial, right? So, and I think in a couple of slides they talk about beginner's luck, so there may be some of these factors at play in this portion. But in terms of is this real, not real kind of thing, like, yeah, of course, stats tell you a story, right? So there's something going on here. It's more about trying to understand the factors that are going into this. And then, of course, did you get enough key learnings out of this? Did you identify enough patterns? Did you, through analytics and whatever, to basically allow yourself to continue to make this work into the future, right? That's the whole goal. So I don't know that because I didn't share all that information, but yeah.
And for the new viewers that are watching, we said this earlier, but it bears repeating. We're not tearing this apart to in a bad way. We're unfolding it in order to maximize the learning that we can get from this. And so I'm going to do something really boring for a few seconds. Hopefully it's interesting to some of you. If it's not, it's just a very quick thing. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the Z score that they have here, the information that they're providing, because for those of us that are kind of into stats, it's helpful, useful information. So it says here in the fine print, each trial consists of a transcript, 2 photo targets, the correct target, and a decoy, the incorrect target. And they used an LLM AI model, so like ChatGPT, to score. So here, this is important, to score how close each transcript came to matching each of the 2 targets. Then we convert those scores to a Z score by comparing the transcript to 100 random control targets. Okay, interesting. So, and then the Z scores shown here are set for some Z sums for all correct and incorrect targets. Okay, so that's interesting. So what they say is, hello, ChatGPT, please compare this remote viewing session to these 100 random images, and then now compare it to one of the actual outcome images. And does it match one of the outcome images more than it matches one of the random images? So that's what that means. So if the computer was likely to say, this is as much a match for one of the random images as it is a match for one of the outcome images, then the Z score is going to be insignificant. But if it says, no, this RV session is such a perfect description of one of these images, compared to how well it fits as a description of all these random images, that we're going to set that one apart, right? And we're going to give it a really high or really, really low Z score, right? And so that's really interesting. And then here's something with 2 asterisks. I subtract the 2 Z scores instead of subtracting, then dividing by the square root of 2, because 2 target z-scores are paired. They come from the same transcript. And are negatively correlated. Yes. One will be high when the other is low. Not necessarily. Okay, so that's not necessarily. Just because you describe the tree very well in your remote viewing session and the outcome images are a bunny for a price going up and a tree for price going down, just because you describe the tree really well in your session doesn't mean you also did not describe the bunny really well. Does that make sense to you, David?
Yeah, again, these things are perspective. So if the perspective that they're choosing to use is beneficial, or if it's skewed, right? And I'm not making judgment on which one it is. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, anybody's perspective can skew something in a wrong direction in terms of kind of painting the wrong picture. On the other hand, it can also give you insights because the perspective is very useful. So it kind of depends on the scenario. So I understand what you're saying. I don't quite know the benefit of this, your perspective versus their perspective. I mean, I'm trying to understand.
Or are they talking about negative correlation? Are they talking about saying, like, are they taking the winning image into account? We'll have to talk to them about it. And then one will be high, because they're saying one will be high while the other is low. Will it necessarily? That means that the per trial difference is already a valid single discriminant reflecting direction and magnitude of psychic signal. Dividing by square root of 2 would incorrectly shrink that difference because the two aren't independent. Correct, to some extent. Yeah, they are not independent. Well, yeah. And so I feel this approach is of not dividing by square root of 2 is statistically consistent. I mean, I have to think about that. I have to review my notes on the manual equation for determining the z-score. I need a refresher on that because I need to think about that. But so the z-score for the correct choice is significantly significant, and the z-score for the incorrect choice. But again, it's not clear to me. Are we talking about the z-score for describing the bunny when it was the tree? Or are we talking about the z-score for describing something that doesn't apply to either image? Do you have an insight on that, David?
No, I don't. It probably just is something that needs better clarification in order to understand it completely before, trying to pass judgment or analyze it.
And then there seems to be a bit of a learning curve where the first few months, there was nothing significant going on. And then something happens in April. So something happened in April. And I wonder what that is. Did someone new get involved? Did they change their LLM analysis method? Did suddenly more people participate? Right? Something happens in April that really changed the data. When you're doing statistical analysis and you have something, a chart like this, I probably wouldn't submit it for publication until I figured out what happened in April, tried to explain it away, and then if I couldn't, then I know this is a real effect. But first I would want to list out, look, we looked at whether the judges changed, they didn't. We looked at whether the chat GPT was updated, it wasn't. We looked at whether the people who were remote viewing changed. Did we start advertising on the Facebook groups? And all of a sudden we got all these higher level remote viewers coming in April and participating, right? You have to kind of investigate that. Right, and write it in your paper. These are the things that could cause this but didn't, so that the reader can accept this as it stands. Does that make sense?
And I think maybe the tariffs came in that time frame and affected the markets, from what I recall. And so I'm saying, like, that it could have been an external factor that was like not normal, like, oh, the tariffs, and it's like, the whole market goes berserk. And so that might have actually been the more of the contributing factor for that. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that I think that might be true to an extent.
Yeah, that's very interesting because so hopefully they'll be able to respond to our live stream. And again, you guys, we're doing this in good faith. We're not doing this we're really just trying to explore the data to learn as much as possible. And we're sharing the things we did really well. And we're also sharing the things that we have questions about. And so And this is one of those things where clearly something happened. And so then it's interesting. So, and even just the rate of increase from April to May, there's something anomalous that's going on there. And then, and it might be the tariffs, David, because then late June, middle to late June, there's a significant decline after a steep increase. So the steepness is interesting. It's, sorry, my hair is being a bit annoying. Yeah, there's a really steep increase in June, and then a slow decline. So that I would want to kind of see what would be really helpful for the people that created this chart and put this paper together. So Greg, thetimemachine.com, Greg, if you could give us this and then also give us the market performance, right? I think that would be really nice to have this and then have the trading view screen capture showing me the NASDAQ futures contracts over this period of time. That would be helpful. And then, okay, so total number of trades, Z-score trades that were profitable. So for the first 6 months, 58% profitability. That's awesome. And yeah, okay. It's interesting to me because they're not saying 58% correct. They're saying 58% profitable. And that wording makes me wonder what percentage were correct. Right? I don't know, like if there was a past choice, if it was like it's a clear outcome of buy a long, or it's a clear outcome of buy a short, or it's an unclear, it's random, or it's an unclear because everyone's drawing both. Were they betting different amounts based on the confidence level? And so, because they're not saying percentage of trades that were correct, they're saying the ones that were profitable. Am I being weird to get stuck on that? Is that my autism shining through, David?
Oh, I mean, it's good to explore all the components and the subtleties because, you know, sometimes, a lot of times, the details are what's critical. So, you know, again, clarification on some of this to help deepen the understanding so that we're correctly analyzing the information is useful. But yeah, it's good to ask.
And then just looking at chat, Rustam is only interested in talking to you, David. Not interested in talking to me. Not interested in hearing from me. So I'm going to let you. I'm going to let you answer him privately, I think, because I think he's just more interested in having a conversation with you. And then Yu says, I dedicated some time to ARV with real money, but a tiny amount, and noticed that too many of the results I was very confident about turned out to be wrong. So he's having outcomes that match what this study saw. And then his second, there was something here I saw in the corner of my eye, someone who was like, I felt betrayed by reality. Was that you, Yus? Maybe they deleted the comment, but someone said like, because it felt so right, because it felt so shiny, and then the outcome was wrong, that they felt that betrayal. And I just wanted to say, I can relate to that because like I said earlier about the remembering getting the correct number, remembering writing it down, and then checking the paper and having it be the wrong number written down. I relate to that sense of betrayal of like, the Matrix has betrayed me. And I think some people think God has betrayed them or forsaken them. Why hast thou forsaken me?
Yeah. ARV can feel like that. You get trolled by God is what they said. Yeah. It's which is a hilarious kind of comment because it's like, yeah, you do the ARV and like life is good. Like, wow, I'm good. I'm doing really good. And then it's like, no, I'm going to bet all of it on black or whatever. And it's like, bam, you're toast, you know? So, and it's like, what? Everything was going great. Why is it lying to me all of a sudden? And to me that, you know, again, I've seen the Matrix do things where this is check and balances kind of stuff. It's a whole other different kind of discussion, but there are a lot of factors for that, which we talked about previously, but it is funny because I've same thing. It's like, oh man, what the heck?
It was baked cakes that made the comment. I thought I was good at RV, so years ago I tried ARV. I was spectacularly wrong and was discouraged. Self-trolled by God. So just so that you know, you're not alone in that feeling. I think that happens to a lot of people. And like David says, you'll see it in casinos where people are on the novelty effect and they're winning because it's their first time or because they're using their psychic ability for the first time. And then they push past the novelty effect. And as soon as that novelty effect wears off, they start losing. And because they're so convinced that they were winning because they were worthy or because they're psychic, when the Matrix fights back, it's so disorienting.
Well, the other thing I find an interesting kind of parallel to is the stock market is usually when the stock market goes to a peak, that's when everybody and their brother wants to jump in. That's called FOMO, which is called fear of missing out. So I'm saying, in a way, because I've experienced this personally. So I'm saying, like, if I reflect on my experience, I go, hey, that was kind of like FOMO. It's like, it's that point where I was like, this is working. All right. Yeah, I'm going to win. Right. And that's when I kind of had that FOMO kind of thing going on. And it's like, nope, I'm going to chop you off at the knees. And so I'm saying, like, are those two things related? It's like, maybe.
I did that on Solana. Oh my God. Anyway, if you are interested in crypto trading, I will be doing crypto trading related content in January, live stream stuff. Stay tuned for that. More information coming soon. And Bake Cakes asked, is this RV tournament data? No, this is the timemachine.com data. We're talking about the study that they just published. And so Rustam did say that he agrees with both of us, that this kind of work is important to understand this field. Yeah, it really is. It's really easy to just take from this what you want to see, but that's not helpful. It's not going to help you advance as a remote viewer, and it's not going to help the community. You really do have to tear it apart and see what's the gears that are underneath this and what they're doing and what it means. And I'm just going through chat a little bit to see if there are other questions. We're talking a little bit about RV tournament and the feeling of being trolled. Thank you, Rista. I appreciate that. So yeah, so let's get back to the study because I think this is really interesting. And again, if someone does want to join us in the show to express their opinions or to help answer some of the questions that were, if you're associated with this in any way, with Greg, or if Greg is in chat, there's the link in chat, but I can put the link in chat again, or David can put it back in chat if you guys want to. So David, shall we scroll down a little bit and see what comes next? Okay, so let me go to my version of the paper. Okay, so then now we're looking at cumulative profit and loss over time. This is really fascinating, and I'm going to screen share in a second if I can find it, or maybe David, if you can find it on Discord, where I had the P&L, the profit and loss over time of both studies side to side, and it actually matches. It lines up. I sent it to you when we were talking about this the other day, when we decided we were going to do a live stream about it. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. So here the total trades, again, 129 with an asterisk, and we'll go find out what that asterisk is a little bit later. Minimum number of trials per trade. So there had to be at least 1,000 submissions for them to go ahead. And they only got the go ahead, I guess, on 129 days. 58% profitability. Oh, the number of contracts traded per trade was 5. So I wonder if that was maybe why they have theoretical profits versus actual profits, or I wonder if there was variability in how many contracts they were buying. So here's the asterisk. Each trade predicted direction, up or down, is the consensus of minimum 1,000 to 5,000 individual trials. So maybe a lot of days they didn't have consensus. And so again, we see the profit and loss is pretty amazing. This is an amazing chart. They're showing just really great profits there. So they go from 0 they seem to have, for some reason, again, there's some little bits of things I don't quite understand, or I have a few questions about, I should say. For some reason, their profit and loss statement starts in the negative. And on their website, they talk about 2 years of this study. And I'm wondering if they didn't, again, I come from, this is a bias maybe, but I'm looking at this from an academic perspective. And in academia, in order to get a paper published, you have to be very rigid in your criteria. So you can't do a study, get bad results in the beginning, and then just ignore those and then just pretend they never happened, and then only report the good the results that you got at the end. You can't do that. You also can't do a study and then get amazing results at the beginning, and then the results start to really suck, and you just pretend that we finished the experiment on this day and we'll only include the good data in our study. You can't do that. You get into really big trouble in academia if you do that. And so I do wonder why their profit and loss appears to start in a negative dollar amount. So it looks like they started at a loss. You should start at 0. And so that's what makes me wonder if this is carried over from the previous 14 months. And if that's the case, I want to see the 14 months of data, because did they have really, really bad performance, a really bad hit rate, and then in March they started having a really good hit rate, and then so they decided to cut it and pretend that the study started in March. I'm not saying that they did this. I'm just saying I wonder what would explain why they start the study at a negative, right? Does that seem weird to you, David?
Yeah, the general concept of starting from a base level of 0 is logical. So anything less than that is needs to be understood, essentially, is what it boils down to. Because you can speculate, but you don't really know until you can get a direct answer.
And also the Z-score, we had said, went up significantly in April. And it's matched by the profit. That's a really steep increase. So they went from maybe $55,000 to $130,000 in April. That's a bit weird.
Yeah. Again, the stuff we've already been talking about, which is, again, it's just trying to understand in greater detail, which is this increase here, this short duration jump. Is it due to the psychic ability component? Is it due to the market component? Did they just hit a lucky streak? It has, is it really the psychic piece, or are there other contributing factors? Is there other contributing factors, and they're the prime reason where you get a larger, chunkier profit? I'm not saying that's what we're talking about right here, because you see a long chart with a bunch of stuff happening, but I'm saying you have to kind of take that in consideration. What if you had, I'm not talking about this right here, I'm just saying in general, what if you had this major spike and that accounted for the bulk of your profit? Is that spike really attributed to the psychic component, or is it attributed to other factors, right? So you'd want to know, as a person running it, you'd really want to know, is what's going on? Did I just get lucky, or what happened? So this is like a little micro kind of event where you're trying to understand what contributed to that.
Yes, because it's such a significant increase, right? Because you can see their profit losses. Maybe there's $10,000 at the end of March, but it's mostly really, really small, right? Maybe they're making a couple $1,000s of profit or loss every day. And then all of a sudden, over 4 days at the end of April, in 4 days, they went from 50,000 to 175, 180,000. And then they're making maybe $10,000 a day again. And then there's a little, maybe $20,000 on one day at the end of May, but it's pretty consistent except for those 4 days in April. So something happened in April.
Well, another thing you could do, and I don't know how accurate this would be, might be just to overlay the general chart of the stock markets themselves, like the overall market chart. And if you find that it syncs up with this, you see a very close parallel, then you might start to suspect that the market itself is the primary motivator here, right? I'm not saying that's true or anything. I'm just saying, like, as an analyst, I would be like, oh, what, if I throw that up and overlay it, do I see a match or do I not? Do I see some matches and others that don't? This would be interesting to kind of look at.
Yeah, something's weird there. So, okay, but having said that, though, this is still an amazing chart of results for
Yeah,
remote viewing.
definitely.
This is incredible, right? It's a steep incline. And it's a consistent incline. So we're not seeing a lot of ups and downs. It's pretty much a significant or a steady increase overall. Very, very nice data. And so then trades filter out all trials that scored Z-score of 2.5 or higher. So this is where they removed the 3% of the highest scoring trials where everyone was really confident that they had the right outcome, but they were wrong. If you remove those, then, and so here, this is the 129 trades, but you removed 3%. So their total number of trades should be 126 trades, 125 trades, right? So that's a little bit weird that they're claiming that they had 129 trades when they were including the top 3%, but they also only have 129 trades when they remove the top 3%. So one of those numbers is wrong. One of them should be 125-ish trades. So that's, maybe it's a typo, but that's curious. Or it's 3% of the 500,000, in which case it wouldn't make a difference. We need clarity on that. Is it 3% of the 500,000 submitted trials? Or is it 3% of the trades?
Well, this is typically what happens during an engineering review, is that there are many, because the wording or whatever, it's just one of those things of due diligence where it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort to put this together. Like, whoever put this together, a lot of effort. I see it. I understand that. And it's easy to kind of like, your mindset or whatever, you might skew some things, or in terms of the language, right? The precision of what you're trying to, you're thinking one thing and you write down something else. And this is why I see this all the time, where it's just like, you need clarification. It's like, oh, I meant to say this different phrase. It's almost the same thing and it kind of means the same thing, but it's slightly different or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And I think, you're right. So the 3% is this highest scoring trials. So if they had 500,000 trials and they removed 3% of the trials, might not have affected the number of trades, but it changed the accuracy of the trades. We need clarification on that. And then when you remove the top 3%, where everyone was really where everyone was converging on the same outcome, and the AI ChatGPT was saying, great, this is super clear, everyone clearly chose the tree over the bunny, those were wrong. I would also want to know why they removed 3%. Why not 4%? Why not 1%? Like, what did they find? So did they, what was it about the 3% that made the difference? Because that would be informative to know.
That's a very good point.
Right. And then when they remove the 3%, then now their profitability goes to the theoretical on paper. Profit is $331,000. So that's nice. That's how much they would have made if they had discounted the 3%. And so then if we go to the next page, and here's weird as well. So here we're looking at the profit and loss over time when you're cutting out the top 3%. And when you cut them out, you don't have those 4 days in April where it goes from 50,000 to 180,000. Right?
It starts to flatten out a bit. It's still an upward trend that's very constant, which is good. But it takes out some of the up and down swings and neutralizes them into a more solidified line.
Oh, I wonder, and let us know in chat if you agree, disagree, insights. I wonder if they were betting more money, or buying more contracts when they felt more confident. So if the ChatGPT was saying, like, everybody drew the tree, so like confidence level for the tree is 100%, it's the tree outcome. And then were they saying, okay, since we have this confidence, let's buy double the number of contracts. Let's bet double the amount of money.
Bet it all on
That
black.
was-
Oops.
Yeah. Put it all on black, and that worked. That did not work. But it did.
Yeah, that could be. It's possible.
Because in the short term, they made less money when they discounted. Because instead of hitting 200,000 or 180,000 by May, it took them all the way to middle of June to hit $200,000. Whereas in the previous page, they had hit that. They hit nearly $200,000 by end of April. Technically, beginning of June, they hit 200, so 180 in April. Whereas when they discount the high confidence trials, yeah, it takes them all the way to June to hit 200. So that's kind of interesting, I think, right?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. They're able to show a more consistent kind of result. So again, all these are important because you can kind of start to profile what is working or what the core elements are that get you the result that you want, even if it's not as significant, right? Could be, but then you're like, oh, I didn't get as significant kind of result. And it's like, yeah, but you had a more efficient, less risky result, which is depending on your mindset, can be a superior, like steady gets you there eventually kind of thing, versus like, you go part of the way and then all of a sudden it tanks because it's too high risk. So that this is like, these are good, things to contemplate and to look at with the stats.
I wonder if you'd have the same, you know what? This is why we're doing this, for these little insights. I wonder if this would apply to personal solo remote viewings of numbers and stocks and stuff. So on the ones where, especially for trading, where you're most confident, if you're marking that, and then would one person, so here we're attributing it to the group effect, right? There's that group convergence and they're all converging on the wrong outcome. But I wonder if it works at the individual level. So in January, when I'm doing trading related stuff for you guys, I'm going to track that, my confidence level, and I'm going to see what are my results when I knock out the top 3% of my high confidence. And that was the betrayal by God that Baked Cakes is talking about. So if you take out those top 3 high confidence predictions, do you get a better return on your investment over time, even though in the short term, it seems like it's taking you longer to get there?
Yeah, and the other pattern that I see this relating to potentially, which is interesting, is during a normal remote viewing. Hey, I'm remote viewing the World War II or whatever, right? And you're trying to get data on that. I'm talking about myself from personal experience. Whenever I think I know what the hell I'm like, oh, that's this thing here, it's always wrong. But the times when I don't know what the fuck I just remote viewed, I am totally baffled by the data. That's almost always 100% good. So I'm saying this kind of fits into that same category where you're like, I'll bet it all on black. This is going to win, right? And you're like, nope, you just got your rug pulled right from underneath you, right? And so, but it's the same kind of thing because you're just like, I'm certain this is what this is. This is what happens during a normal remote viewing session. And you're like, I'm going to call target. And you're like, you look like a fool because it's like, yeah, no, that wasn't it at all. You're like way off in left field. So, but it's the other stuff that's actually 100% correct. It's the stuff that you're very confused by. You're not really sure if it's correct. It's weird. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is because the ego is involved in the process, and that's the part that says I can call target. Well, it's your fucking ego, and your ego is not psychic. Your ego is human, and it's dumb. And so that's the part that screws you over. And the part that's psychic is not connected to the human side. So it's like really confused. And you can describe the data, but you can't really figure out how this shit connects together. And it's like, yeah, that's because you're in the actual God part of your head. You're actually connected to the real part of yourself that you want to. And so I'm saying I see the parallel here potentially.
Definitely, yes. And I think, we talked on our channel about filler data a few times, and I've talked about it on social media as well. David and I are both very much against filler data. That's where you think you know what you're describing, and you stop giving data from the data stream, the Akashic Records source, whatever you want to call it, and you start injecting what you know about this. So you're describing a target, and you realize, I think I'm describing the Titanic. And you have all these beliefs about the Titanic, and you start injecting your beliefs into your session as though it's RV data. Don't do that, guys. Stop doing that. But there are so many reasons why I don't do that. But I think even on a subconscious level, once you decide on what the target is, then even if you're not aware of it being passed through that filter of your bias, it does start to go through that filter of your bias. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and one of the things, because we talked about filler before, that is a signature, if you want to see if somebody's doing filler, is that they typically will never give you anything interesting or useful or specific that isn't already known publicly about the target. So if you want to understand if somebody's doing filler or not, and they come out with something that, like, you've never heard that about the target, and then later it's verified that that's correct, that person's not doing filler. That person's actually remote viewing, right? But the filler people will just give you this. You're like, wow, that's exactly what I heard in the history book or whatever. And it's like, yeah, because they've gotten shifted over into that side, and it's not good.
Or filler data conforms to your beliefs. So if I personally believe that there are alien bases on the moon, and I'm remote viewing a white sphere of some kind, and I start to realize, I think this is the moon. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm seeing alien bases here. Because personally, I believe that. That's more likely to be filler data. Whereas if I'm like, I have no idea, I'm just record the data. It's a white sphere. I'm not trying to guess at the target. I'm not trying to call target. So I don't even jump to the conclusion of moon, not even sneaky in my own little mind. My ego isn't looking to prove how psychic I am by calling target. Then you might get data that goes against your beliefs. And to me, I like when I see data in a remote viewer sessions that contradicts their beliefs, because then it's extra confirmation that it's good data. It's data from the data stream, because that's not their own bias. That's just putting in filler data, right? And so if someone doesn't believe in aliens and they get aliens in their data, I'm going to pay more attention to that. Because they don't believe in aliens and they're describing aliens on the moon, then I'm like, okay, this is super interesting. Maybe they're describing a theory or a movie or, an island of belief. But it's more interesting than someone who is always talking about aliens on the moon, and then they happen to remote view aliens on this white sphere in the sky, right? Like,
Yeah, and when you talk to those people, usually you'll find they're agitated because they're like, I didn't want to see aliens. It's like, this is a bunch of crap, And it's like, so I'm saying, like, you can also tell by their emotional engagement with the whole process is another indicator that they got good data. Like, it's a combination, it's multi-layered.
Yeah. And so then moving here onto the page. So this is where it gets really interesting. And I think this is, for me, the most important part of this study. So we move to, where are you? Are you on the same page? Yeah. So below that chart, the confirmation experiment results. And so I talked earlier about, in academia, you have to kind of preset what you're doing so that it's easier to know that you're not cheating. For example, you say, I want an effect size this big. And so I do my calculation and I say, okay, in order to have an effect size that big, in order for my results to be more certain that the result is real and it's not just a glitch in the data, then I need this many participants in my study. Maybe I need 22, maybe I need 33, maybe I need 100 in order to make sure that my result is not a glitch. And here's something, for example, let's say I'm looking at, does height make you a better reader? Is there a correlation between how well you read and how tall you are? So if I'm looking at men and I'm saying, are taller men better readers? Do they read faster? Do they have better reading comprehension skills? If I include males between the ages of 0 and 80, then all the males between 0 and 7 are going to skew my data because they don't know how to read yet because they're babies. And so these are like, there are all these confounding factors that you have to take into account. And so when you're conducting these kind of studies, you have to be really clear. I'm going to run it for this many trials, or I'm going to run it for 6 months. And I'm going to invest $100,000. I'm going to open it to random remote viewers. You can't then in the middle of it say, my results are not good enough and I really want to get more funding. So let's figure out how I can get better remote viewers to participate. If in the middle of your study, you brought in 100 remote viewers who are trained CRV remote viewers, and then prior to that, you weren't using them, and then you cut your study at that point forward, you're misrepresenting what's going on. And so all of these things, that's why we're looking at this so closely. We have to figure out what's actually happening that's causing these effects. So when you say, I'm going to do a replication study and I'm going to do it for 6 months, you can't cut it short because you're not getting the results that you want. And the reason for that is sometimes, so I don't want to be too statistically numbery and being boring and annoying. So I'm going to try to be concise, which is hard for me. But most of the time when you're doing, let's say, like just a normal study, you say, you set a p-value, a probability value of like, if I were to randomly sample everyone that was not psychic, random chance means that they would guess right this amount of the time, even though they're not psychic. Right? So then if I want to see if they actually are psychic, I have to show that they're guessing right more often than the people who were not psychic. Because if you're not psychic, you're not always going to guess wrong. Sometimes you're just going to guess right, and that's just random chance, right? And so there's like a 1 in 20. If you do 20 studies on someone, in one of those 20, you're going to get a result that's a false positive. The data says, oh, look, something happened, but it's just random chance. So for most studies, it's 1 in 20, right? Because you have for people who do stats, you have a p-value of 0.05, right? And so that's why when you're publishing for a journal, if you're secretly doing 20 studies and only one of them gave you a positive result, and then you take all 19 of the ones that didn't give you a good result and you put them in the bottom drawer of your desk and you pretend they don't exist. And then you take the 20th and you put that out for publication and you say, look, we got a real effect. That's called the bottom drawer effect. That happens in psychology. It happens in medicine. It happens in all fields. And it's really, really terrible and it's unethical. And the science communities are always trying to combat this. And if anyone finds out that you're doing this, your career is kind of damaged, if not destroyed. And so that's why I was wondering about the negative start point for the profit and loss. And that's why I have a problem with this replication experiment. They decided to run the experiment again following the 6-month experiment. So they just started right away. And it's not clear, but it seems to me that if you're doing a replication study, that you would run it for another 6 months. And they had the same funding, $100,000. So it looks to me like the intention was to run it for another 6 months. If you cut it short, which they did after 2 months because you lost $87,000, then you've now made all the data useless. Not just the data of the replication, all of the data. Because you don't know if after the 2 months where $87,000 of your $100,000 was lost, so basically you lost all your money. You don't know if in the next 4 months something would have happened like in April, and all of a sudden you would have shot all the way back up and ended up with a 60% hit rate again to match the 60% of the first study when you remove the top 3 of the overconfidence levels. Or would you have gotten an outcome that compensates for the 58% win rate of the first experiment? So would you have gotten a 42% win rate over the 6 months? And when you put all the data together, you end up even chance? So is the matrix creating an equilibrium? David, because we're losing viewers because I'm being too technical, can you say a few things in your deep man voice to...
Well, I mean, I think I think you've explained it fairly well here. Because you could end up at chance. One scenario is you do the full secondary 6 months and you have a bad result, and you end up at chance between the two. Or like you said, you could end up with it could get skewed in the opposite direction towards the last month or something crazy, right? You don't know. This is why it's important to kind of follow through with multiple trials completely. But having said that, again, I still appreciate the openness by which they are sharing the data, right? So that's still useful to us to understand and question these things and learn from their study.
Yeah, definitely. So we're grateful that they told us that they did a replication. We're grateful that they told us that they cut it short after 2 months. Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not. Yeah, so we're grateful for that. But I wish that they I wish they had not stopped it. I don't know if they stopped it because they were also using real money, and because here at the end, at the bottom of the page, you see theoretical profit earned negative 87,000 USD. That's a lot. They lost all their money, but the actual profit is minus 70. So again, did they use real money and then paper trading, or are they talking about I think maybe slippage, or I don't really know. So hopefully they'll answer that. But it looks to me like the actual money they lost was 70,000. So I can understand if you've put in 100, whoever it is that gave them the $100,000 to begin with, and you're kind of responsible to them. You're spending their money on this, and you just told them, look, we just did this and we made $200,000. So give us another 100,000. We'll give you another $200,000 back. And now you're down $70,000 after 2 months. I can see why you'd want to quit, but then it's not scientific, because as soon as you cut the study short, now none of the data means anything, because now we don't know if the matrix was going to bring you back to chance odds for the data overall. And I'm hoping someone in 2018, I think, at the IRVA conference that was blended between IRVA and the Society for Scientific Exploration. So the IRVA SSE had a conference together, and I think that was in 2018. Someone at that conference, I think, I could be wrong on this. This is so long ago, and I was so young. And I don't remember but who it was or which particular conference it was, but I was at a conference and they were talking about this bounce effect, or maybe it was online on one of the IRVA channels. But they were basically saying when they looked at different size studies that were conducted, what they found was someone would do a study and they would get a positive result, statistically significant. This works, psychic stuff is happening. And then when that group did a second study, or maybe when another group did a replication, I don't think it mattered, they would find no result. Or like in this study, negative result. The results would be bad. And then the third study, all of a sudden the effect was back. Oh, there is a psychic effect. And the fourth study, there's no psychic effect. Nothing is happening. So there's a bounce effect. There's an equilibrium maintenance effect going on. And to me, that's super interesting. Nearly more so than this, because then you could, I don't know, can you trick the matrix and run a study where you're using real money and then have the effect? And then run a paper trading experiment where you're just paper trading, and the matrix establishes equilibrium by making you lose your 100,000. And then you run your third one with real money. What do you think, David? And what do you think in chat, you guys?
Yeah, because the question for that would be, can the matrix be confused? Does it understand the difference between the amount of effort? If you put in the same amount of effort for both, right? Like in this case, it's an extraordinary amount of effort that they put into the first trial in terms of the number of people, what they were doing every day, that kind of thing, right? And then the second one, if you do first one's physical money, and second one is theoretical. Does the matrix know the difference? And so then if you go like you just said, and so then I don't know, like this is another experiment that would have to be run. But if you could game the matrix, which is what everybody wants, give me that hack, that cheat code. What is it again? We're looking at the keyboard. I'll get that code for you. Yeah, everybody wants that. They want the quick buck.
Yeah, so I think that's I think that's an experiment with running, right? Does the matrix know when you're paper trading and when you're really trading? We'll try that in 2026. Stay tuned to find out more. So yeah, so I think that that's interesting. I really want to know more about what happened. So for the audience though, the 6 month, the confirmation lost 87,000 with a total Z score for targets predicting the wrong outcome. So that's another thing as well. In this one, the Z score for the wrong outcome was super high, 2.23, really, really high, which suggests that missing more often than chance would permit. So people were getting it wrong more than you would just guess wrong. So something psychic is happening, but it's happening to restore the balance in in the matrix. So it's taking all the money you want, it's taking it all back in a sneaky psychic way. That's what that suggests. And the odds against chance of their loss was 1 in 50. So it's unlikely. That's what this Z score is telling us here. It's unlikely that it was just, oh, you roll the dice and chance just determines, oh, and you lost. Like, no, something was happening here. Something magical was happening that took all their money away. And again, to your point earlier, David, about political things going on, the confirmation experiment was September 1st to October 31st. I'm in Canada, but I do try to follow American politics. But I don't know if there was something happening in the US economy September 1st to October 31st that maybe would have affected this. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know the whole AI bubble thing is a recent talk, but it's also been prior to that to an extent, right? So did that start to pick up on the tail end of that thing, and was that affecting the market? I'm not really sure. I know things, in my opinion, are going down. There's a lot more job loss type stuff being posted in the last couple of months, and so I don't know.
yeah, and that's another thing as well. Are the emotions of the people who are applying the stock market affecting this as well? Is it the matrix restoring equilibrium? Is it the emotion of traders that are affecting whether you're winning or losing? It's an interesting thing, right? Because we're all participating in one consciousness on some level, right? We're all dipping in and out of the data stream, and so yeah, so that's really interesting. And so yeah, so they lost all nearly all their money in 2 months, so they cut it short. And then if you want to scroll to the next page and we can look at the
Yeah, I was gonna say we should probably move it along a little bit faster, just so I don't fade out too much, because this is 2 hours and 15 minutes. But there is some interesting things coming up, guys.
Yes, there is. Yeah, we're going to be talking about local sidereal time in a second. So when we look at these Z-score significance here, very different than what we saw on the other chart. So on the other chart, we saw a really huge discrepancy between the Z-score for correct versus wrong image choice. And here we're seeing the complete opposite, where they're very much in sync with each other. And that's surprising as well. And we're also seeing increased synchronization. And so what would be interesting to see is, are these all the same viewers? And are they all doing it in the exact same way? And so are they really part of two experiments on a level of consciousness in the matrix? Or is the matrix treating this as one experiment? And then it's restoring balance in the system, equilibrium, in that one experiment, right? How is it seeing it would depend not on how Greg sees it, but it would depend on how the remote viewers are seeing it. If they're just doing the same thing every day, but now the title of the email is experiment 2.0 instead of experiment 1, then for them, they're still maybe thinking of it consciously as the same thing, right? And so that might skew the results as well. And so, yeah, so here the trades that were profitable was 46%, and they only did 43 trades, so only 20 out of 43 made money, and then the rest lost a lot. So it's not just that they lost, but lost a lot. Same number of contracts traded per trade, 5. Yeah, and so then when you scroll to the cumulative profit and loss over time on the next page, you can kind of ignore for now because we're not going to get into it, the yellow line. We're just looking at the blue, the actual cumulative profit and loss. This is a mirror image of the experiment 1. Did you send me the mirror image JPEG to share?
I found what I could and tried to put it up there. If it's on there, it's on there. If it isn't, it isn't. It's the
The
best I
mirror
can do.
image one that I sent you on Discord. I don't want you
Yeah.
to take it from the document. I want you to take it from Discord.
No, I took all those from the Discord. There were 2 of them, but I don't know if that's what you wanted.
One of them
If
is the
it,
mirror image where I
yeah,
show
I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have it. Just, sorry.
Oh, can you look? Can you look? Because I actually do think it's useful
Yeah,
to see
I
them.
did. I did look, and I tried to give it to you in the chat. It should be there to pull up. If it's not what you want,
In the
then
chat or just in the bottom there? Let's see.
in
Add
the
to
bottom.
stage. No, that's just one. So you sent me this one. So it was the other picture that was with this one.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys will just have to look at it for yourself. But if you put the profit and loss over time of both together, experiment 1 and experiment 2, it's really a clear bell curve. And that's why I think the Matrix is treating this as one experiment, not 2. And I think partly because if they use the same viewers, the same protocol, there was no, and it says in the study, there was no delay time in between. They pretty much started the replication study was done immediately after. And it looks like a bell curve. You have the up, rising up, and then you have the dropping down, decline. And most natural systems, when you just let them behave as they will, they create a bell curve. It doesn't matter what you're looking at. It doesn't matter if you're looking at how many times do you cough during the day, or how many people get, or what grades people get on an exam, or how many photons pass through the glass instead of bouncing off the glass. Like, all these different natural systems tend to behave in ways that are fairly well described by a bell curve. And it's interesting to me that when I looked at the first experiment and the second experiment and put the cumulative profit and loss next to each other, you can see the bell curve. Again, that just strongly, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it really strongly suggests that the Matrix reality is responding to these 2 studies as one. And again, I think that's important to think about, because we were talking earlier, can you trick the Matrix by doing a paper trading for the balancing effects where you lose the money, and real money trading on every second study you do, where you know you're more likely to get a profitable outcome? That won't work if the Matrix is treating every set of 2, one where you're doing paper trading and one where you're doing real money trading, as one experiment, because then you're going to get the bell curve and you're going to come out with a 50% win rate, your odds of chance, right? You're going to come out breaking even. Does that make sense, David, what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Nice. And so I just thought, I don't know, people in chat, is that surprising? I think that's surprising. Is that profound? Does that make you think about how the Matrix works or what it is? Or so let's move on. A couple pages as you scroll on the screen. I'm scrolling on my copy. Let's go down and look at the sidereal time. Yes, David? Or is there more that we wanted to say here? Oh, we could look at the funding. If people are interested in how much they spent on advertising, how much they paid out to the participants, all of that is in the PDF. And we will link that maybe down below. We'll see if Greg is okay with us linking that down below, and then we can put that down below. But the chart that you're seeing on screen now that David is showing, it shows all of that. Profits and loss, payments to advertisers, all of that. So that's interesting. And they do talk about beginner's luck in their post hoc analysis. Is the analysis that you do after the data has all been closed. So when you're finished collecting all the data, so you might, right, that's when you start analyzing. You're not supposed to really do analysis before that, because then you're tempted to skew it, like, oh, my results are getting significant, so I'm going to cut it off now before the matrix kicks in and brings them back to zero chance level.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially when there's money involved. Be like, I'm doing analysis in real time, man. I gotta make me some money.
And so, yeah, so they have a lot of charts, a lot of information, really useful. We do appreciate that. Oh, and then this is the lunar phase histogram. I did want to kind of look at that on page 19. Or we could also look very quickly. Let me see. I'm probably scrolling through this a bit too fast, but they have the trades by beginners. Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that because we talked about beginner's luck. And if you go to page 18 of 24 in the PDF, when they only looked at the beginners had a 58% win rate that was highly significant in terms of the confidence, so convergence on one outcome, I guess. And the theoretical profit, if they had only used the beginners, would have been $748,000 for I think this is for the first study. That's hilarious. So
yeah, that's trying to hack the matrix.
If you're
which is hilarious because you're like, the thing about that is normal everyday normal stuff, engineering, science, finances, whatever. So medicine, you want the experts to help solve the problem, but in this case you actually want the completely clueless people and you want to chunk through them, right? You just want to throw them into the meat grinder, like, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, that's excellent. And then as soon as they get a little bit green, you toss them out. You're out of here. I need the next batch of completely clueless people. So in order to make this crazy cash, so that's pretty interesting.
I mean, you would have tripled your honestly, if you go from $241,000 return on investment to $745,000 by screening out all the intermediate remote viewers, everybody who knows what they're doing, just screen them out, only have the people who are completely new at this, and you're going to make $750,000. I mean,
that's pretty weird, right?
And it's funny because there's so many companies and so many individuals who are putting themselves out there as like, I'm a great remote viewer, hire me. And then the results of this are like, no, if you want someone to predict the stock market.
Yeah, we want the worst people. It's so weird. Yeah. And it's also sort of like the way the matrix would work too. Like the matrix is like, let me see, how can I make it so they'll never figure this out? I know. I'll make the worst people be able to be successful. They'll never use them.
And the funny thing is, I wonder if we replicated it, would it be the opposite? Just because the matrix is so sneaky, would it be like, oh, you're going to mess with me by only hiring newbies? This time it's only the good remote viewers that get good results.
Yeah, or it'll mess with your AI at that point.
Yeah. And Ristam says, I think the matrix is a machine-like entity without any bias or emotions, and its only job is to maintain the status quo. And there we have a chance to trick it for better results. I think you might be onto something there, Ristam. Yeah. So that's hilarious that they would have made $750,000 if they'd only used beginners. With a super high Z score. That makes it funny. So yeah, I don't know how companies that hire viewers for these kinds of predictions are going to deal with this information. That's why it needs to be replicated to find out if there's a bounce back effect or if this is just how it works now. And then lunar phase histogram. Let's look at the lunar phase. So the green is the correct target. The red is the wrong target. And we're only interested in those two at the moment for this little conversation. So here, what I find interesting, when the moon is full, there was more convergence on the wrong target and on the right target. So
yeah, because the line in the center is the baseline, right?
It looks like it. Yeah. Or
So
is
the
that
red
the
goes down, but
significant
it's not too far down, but the green's really high up.
Yes. So there's higher convergence on, if I'm interpreting this correctly, because I still have some questions about what exactly they're looking at for the Z-score. But if I'm interpreting this correctly, it looks like there's more convergence on the correct image during the full moon. That's awesome information. It's a really big effect. It's a significant effect.
Yeah, so this is one. I mean, we've seen kind of other indicators of different things like this, but this one, because there's such a high volume of people involved in sample size, that kind of thing, right? I mean, it's a very big deal. It's not a tiny sample, because most of the other stuff we've looked at, much smaller sample sizes. So this one, but again, you know, how much is the beginner effect playing into this, right? We have to also consider some of these other factors as to why this might be not really fully true in all cases. You have to kind of like think about the conditions, right? But having said that, it still might be. And so you should track your results around the full moon and see if you get, especially if you're doing ARB, because that's what this is focused on.
Yes. And I wonder if Greg would make it available. Can we see the beginner chart for effects of the full moon on Z-scores and then intermediate and advanced? Because like you said, I think that's a good point, a good insight that you had, David. Is this more of an influence on beginners? If it's not,
Are you stacking hacks? Got the moon hack. Yep, got that one. Check. Got the clueless person. Check. Got the whatever hack. You know, it's like, yeah. Now I'm gonna bet on black. I can't lose.
right? And even, but like you could even, if you know that the matrix is treating this as one experiment, paper trading, money trading, every 2 experiments that you do in one after the other, it's going to treat it as one bell curve. Then you could track your profit and loss statement and see the bell curve and know when to get out. But then because the matrix doesn't recognize time, it just has all the data. It will know that you quit at that point, so it'll shift the bell curve over, right? Like it just gets so complicated. I think it would let you get away with it once, and then it will learn what you're doing. So then after that, I think you'll get wonky. You won't get bell curve data. You'll get a skewed curve. You'll get all kinds of wonky stuff. Baked Cakes says, I used to notice my performance fluctuate based on moon cycle as well. Very interesting. Do you still notice that, or has the effect declined? I'll ask Greg. I'll see if he can, if they have the data, if they can separate it out by level of skill. I suspect, I would think that as you become a better remote viewer, you're less influenced by moon phases, these kinds of other natural cycles.
We had done a blood moon test, Sasha and I, and that one for me personally, I mean, my skill level is pretty good at this point, but on that particular one, I think it was helped by the blood moon. Like it was easier to get the data, because I was just like, it was weird. I was kind of like already on it, and I don't know how to explain it. You just have to see the session and stuff. I think we posted a video on some of it, but
it's the Persinger session, and it's posted on our main remote viewing channel. That's Magic in the Noise. So we have 2 channels. We have Magic in the Noise, and we have Magic in the Noise Unlisted. This live stream should be on our unlisted channel, but I decided to put it on our main channel because we have a bigger audience, and I thought maybe more people would be interested. But I will take clips of this, highlights of it, if I have time in December, and put that on our unlisted channel. Our unlisted channel is where we put interviews with people, but we also put tools and tips videos for how to be a better remote viewer. And on this one, our main channel, this is our David and my remote viewing results, and a monthly live stream where we invite the public to do live remote viewing sessions, and I do analysis, and then we all come together on the live stream and we talk about all the data. And so yeah, and so this is going on our main channel, but the Persinger David's what is it, Blood Moon, that's the name. That one's on our main channel. And then I did a live stream. So for mine, you have to go to the live stream tab, and Michael and I had a conversation about my blood moon session that was on the hill. The target that David gave me was the telepathy tapes hill. And so my data as well, I would say, David, I agree with you. For me, the blood moon session, the data was pouring through me. The accuracy was amazing. The visual, which for me doesn't always come through in the same way. It was so visual because I have aphantasia.
Yeah, so people need to be aware of that. She has aphantasia. So when she sees his visuals, it's like, what the, for her, it's a big deal. And it usually is highly relevant.
Yeah, so usually I get conceptual visual data. So it's not visual data, it's just tagged as visual, but I experience it as conceptual. But for the blood moon, it was visual experiencing of the data. So that was really amazing. So I would agree with you. I did see significant effects from the blood moon eclipse. It was the eclipse, right? The blood moon eclipse or something.
Yeah, it was an eclipse. Yeah, we did it
in March. Yeah, it was the 23rd, I think, of March or something. So people couldn't find that. So yeah, so mine is the Sasha the Hill session, and David's is the Blood Moon Persinger session. Okay, so then moving on to local sidereal time. Or what's the moving? Oh yeah, here we go. So the local sidereal time. This is something everybody talks about. And what's his name? Is it Fisher Spoon? What is the name of the guy who first discovered this? I want to call him Fisher Spoon.
Oh, I think he's on the next slide. His name maybe is where's it at? Somewhere. I thought his name was in here.
Oh, Spottiswoode. James Spottiswoode.
Yeah, that guy.
It's not Fisher Spoon. So James Spottiswoode published a paper. He had done research on whether local sidereal time affected people's remote viewing. And everyone misinterpreted his results and then misquoted his results. And then at some point, nobody went back and read the actual study. People would just go based on what they had heard other people talk about on the study. So what he had found was when the geomagnetic activity, when the Earth's magnetic field and the solar magnetic field were influencing each other strongly. So there was a lot of change in it. And I think it was even more vague than that. I have notes on this because I want to make a video about this in particular. But it was the effect size that was actually significant. It wasn't. So anyway, when there was large changes and it was 1:30 in the morning local sidereal time, or 1:30 in the afternoon local sidereal time, that's when he saw an effect on remote viewing results. People forgot about the geomagnetic flux and just said at 13:30 you get better remote viewing data. And so then that became the myth, that became the popular belief. If you remote view at 13:30 local sidereal time, you get better remote viewing results. And the problem with that is some people would test it during high flux times and they would say, yes, it's true, it worked, I did it, worked for me. And then some people would test it during low magnetic flux activity changes, and they were like, oh, no, I tried it, it didn't work at all. It made no difference at all. And that was because the conclusion in the whole community, I learned it as 13:30 local sidereal time, that's when you get better remote viewing results. I never heard until I went myself to the original study and read the original study that wasn't it. It was that you also have to have this activity going on. And so I think that that's significant here because unfortunately here they're giving us the local sidereal time, but they're not taking into account the flux. And so and again, this would actually disprove the 13:30 because here it looks like they have the most significant effects at 12 local sidereal time and at 1646 local sidereal time. So that's when the results were significantly more correct. What do you think about that, David?
Yeah, I'm having trouble reading this, but give you my vision. But
so at the 12 o'clock local sidereal noon, you have the highest Z score for a correct target. So most convergence on the correct image was happening when it was noon, or even higher. You got even better results, more convergence on the correct picture when you were doing it at 4:45, 5 p.m. So if you did your remote viewing either at 5 o'clock or noon local sidereal time, you had the most convergence on the correct picture.
But then there's another slide here, which actually has, does it have both of these? The top one we just saw, is that in the top? Because down at the bottom, it shows 1330 aligns.
And see, this is, yes, okay, so this is this is from James Spottiswoode study. See, this is why I want to go back to my notes, and I'm going to do a video about this. What James Spottiswoode, nobody who looked at the original study interpreted it correctly, and that's nobody's fault, because most people who read studies that are written for a journal don't necessarily have the background to understand what the heck it's saying. And when you write a paper for a journal, you write very technical language for people who have the exact same education in terms of how you use terms and what terms you use. And so a very small number of humans can actually understand your scientific paper that gets published. But for most common people, they're like, I don't know what that is even describing. And so that's what and that's nobody's fault. That's just because, that's communities create their own little lingos, right? And so it's the effect size that peaks at 1330, which means that the effect that you notice is greater, but it doesn't mean that that's when the better remote viewing is happening. So if you're getting bad results, then you're going to get your worst results at 1330 because the effect size is greater, right? If you're looking at someone who's self-sabotaging, they hate rich people and they're doing ARV for money, and they're losing against the odds, against chance, right? So like in the second experiment. So then the significant effect that you're looking at ends up being the loss, right? So how many times are you losing? When chance would be 0, are you losing twice as often as random chance would expect? And if your loss is twice as much as random chance would expect, then at 1330, that effect is going to be the strongest. So if you do your remote viewing at 1330 and your self-sabotage is kicked in, your self-sabotage effect is going to be the most powerful at 1330. So that's what this is the effect size. The effect size is like if I take a random sample of humans who have no psychic ability and I get them to guess, and then I take psychics and I get them to guess. The effect size is how much of an effect is there that's real, that you can generalize to the larger population of humans that are psychic or humans that are not psychic. And so that's what he found, was just that the effect was greater at 1330, not that the RV data was better, just that the effects of the magnetic flux were greater. And so in their study, the Z score, when we look at 1330, the overall Z score was nothing special because the black line is the same at 725. And the correct image doesn't correlate with that. It correlates, it's strongest at 5 p.m. local sidereal. So it doesn't match up. Interesting, 5 p.m. local sidereal is when the current study we're looking at had the strongest effect. So the best results, the most accurate outcomes. And that correlates with the lowest effect size from Spottiswoode, which means you're most likely to be correct, but it's most likely to be a glitch that only pertains to the people in your sample. It wouldn't generalize out to a different group of remote viewers. Does that make sense, David? Am I translating this properly for people?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I'm really tired, but
Yeah.
I would say just from my personal experience with this, testing it personally, and the factors that you're describing are all things that need to be considered in this. But I'm just speaking from the experience piece, is when I've done 1330 testing, it tends to be better, like significantly better. I notice the results are better for me personally. But the other one that I noticed was better is also about 3 a.m. in the morning. And for me, I know that that's related to consciousness being quieted down. I think there are other factors like the geomagnetic is also quiet. There's a change in that. So I think it's a multiple things, but I think that those two things are actually linked. And for me, I noticed a significant boost in my results at about 3 a.m. And then when the two of those kind of align, I noticed I even got a better result. But did I do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these kinds? No, I did like probably a couple dozen, 2, 3 dozen of these. 3 a.m. probably did like, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Did sidereal time, another, 12 times or something, 15 or whatever. So it was enough where I could tell it was useful.
Yes. And I do wonder as well, there's the tendency that we have unfortunately adopted from the hard sciences where you're always averaging data for the population and you're never taking into account individual differences. And whenever you read a scientific paper, a peer-reviewed paper, any results that are weird to the individual, they cut those out as outliers and they don't include them in the data. But that's what we should be most interested in, right? Like, I'm more interested in what is it about people who do better remote viewing at 1330? Are they more in sync with natural cycles or less? Are they are they a different blood type? Are they raised by a single mother? Do they live with a woman or do they not live with a woman? And women are obviously going to be more in tune with the lunar cycle because it regulates a little bit, correlates with our menses. So like, how do
they have giant DNA like I have?
Or they have giant Nephilim DNA like you? David is secretly a Nephilim. So that's what I would want to know, right? And peer-reviewed research, published research, science research, they would cut you out as you, David, would be an outlier. And so they would just cut out your data. Whereas I think for the psychic community, we should be more interested in the outliers because that gives us more useful information. Because let's be frank, most people who are in the psychic community are outliers in different ways from the normal random person on the street. And so we should be more interested in that. From chat, a few comments from chat. Risham is saying, is it possible that these blood moon increase is like a placebo effect where participants believe they will be better? I don't know. It could be. We'd have to do it repeatedly. I don't know that we thought it would necessarily have an effect, but placebo effects have an effect even if you don't believe in them. So we'd have to do it again and again. And Baked Cake was saying, oh yeah, trying to be more into practice. Yeah, practice your remote viewing as often as possible if you're doing it the right way. This is funny and interesting, and it's related to what we're talking about. Baked Cake is saying during half of the month I would get a certain outcome on RV tournament. The next half I get the exact opposite. So I learned to flip my answers. That's exactly it. That's when you trick the matrix. So the matrix gives you a pattern, right? So he's saying like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, X, 0, 0, 0. And then that's the winning pattern. And then if you just flip that for the next.
That's a very, very powerful cheat code. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Baked
Cake. You'll see me at the bank later after I visit the casino.
It's true, though, if you can find the pattern and know when the pattern flips. And that's what I was talking about earlier. If you can find the bell curve, then you can know from looking at the first half of the bell curve, oop, we've gone to the 3/4 point, so we're about to hit the decline. Time to get out now. So I just think really interesting data here about the 5 p.m. They didn't offer any data about why. And again, the fact that they had the most correct answers at 5 p.m. local sidereal time. But in Spottiswood's work, that was the least effect size. So that means that it would affect the least number of normal humans. So again, is that because the psychic effect is an outlier trait, right? So I think that it's really nice that they gave us this data because it allows for a lot more, like the next 10 years could be filled with experiments based on this one set of studies. So we're very grateful to the group for that. And then the conclusion. I wanted to say this, but I want to say this respectfully. So they concluded that what they have proved is that a large-scale cloud-based coordination of intuitive human data can be automated, verified using the AI, and monetized. So money can be made this way. But we don't know that because they didn't finish the replication study. They did the study for 6 months, made 200,000 from an initial 100,000. And then they did the replication, but then they cut it short after 2 months and they lost 87,000 in that first 2 months. So we don't know. We don't know what it shows. It shows us nothing because they didn't finish the next 4 months. So we have no way of knowing what the matrix would have done in the next 4 months. Would they have come out on top or not? Would it all have evened out to 0? And we don't know if the next group that uses their system, their viewers, their database, are they going to be finishing the 4 months that they started in the replication study from the matrix's perspective, which means you're going to lose $30,000 over the first 4 months of taking this over and using this group. We don't know that yet. And so that's why I'm a little bit confused, I think, about why they cut it short, because it makes all of it useless data. Unfortunately, you can't conclude anything from it now because the matrix was not treating it as two separate. And you can tell from the bell curve, you can tell from profit loss. There's some, and I find it confusing because if you look on the last page at the top, if you're interested in exploring or acquiring this turnkey platform, you can buy it from him. And what do you get? You get the web application, because on the previous page 23 or 24, he lists a robust web application for managing ARV sessions, a scalable cloud computing backend capable of real-time AI analysis. So this is the ChatGPT analysis, but we haven't shown that analysis is effective. So I think, a very strong statement to be making, but I don't see the data to back that up, that the AI analysis was in any way effective. Sophisticated fraud detection and participant policing systems, that's outside of the scope of the paper, so I don't know about that. A trained global workforce of thousands of experienced participants. That's not a selling point because we just saw that the beginner effect accounts for their profit. It looks like the beginner effect accounts for all of their profit. So saying we have experienced viewers means that you're going to get the replication, the consistent loss of money. Because am I taking crazy pills, David?
Well, I mean, I mean, again, each person has to assess this on their own individually to see what they conclude from this. Is our own, personal opinions about this. It doesn't mean that we know anything is accurate in terms of what we're saying. Essentially, it's a disclaimer is what I'm trying to say. But from an engineering perspective, or, I know millionaires that do accredited investments, which are a completely different category than the average person has access to. And in either case, whether it's an engineering perspective, a science perspective, or somebody who's very wealthy who has the mindset to critically assess an investment, whether to go into or not. I mean, just for me personally, there's not enough supporting evidence that I would feel comfortable investing. This is just me personally. But it goes back to what you said. Some of those are strong statements. Do they have some data to back up portions of what they're saying? Yes. But like on the AI stuff, we don't have any insights as to any of that information. It's just sort of stated that the AI helped to do the analytics, right? But in the paper, we don't know what that means. We don't have any under the hood stats and data, and we don't know what it's doing, and because we might conclude that there's a different kind of thing that it's doing, and maybe it got lucky a bunch of times, or things just lined up, or maybe it's really good, just as good as they say. But I don't honestly don't know. So for me, it would be too high risk. I'm a very low risk person. I like very calculated risks. I want all the hacks, everything, and then go in there and be like, yeah, it's going to be pretty hard for me to lose on this one. And if I do lose, I know exactly where I'm going to land. It's not confusing as to where I'm going to go. I'm going to go right here, and I can accept that loss. That's kind of trading. The trading mindset of a trader is to look at the profit and then to say, okay, but what if it goes in the opposite direction? And you just go, well, if it goes the opposite way, it's this much loss. But if it goes this way, up above, it's this higher, it's this much. And you're like, okay, I'll accept that, because if I have 3 or 4 of those lined up and one of them hits, the profit will cover all the losses, the small losses that I get. So this is risk management, right? And for me, this is fascinating. I'm glad that they put this out, but in terms of that part of it, I don't know what to say about that.
And you brought something up that made something else click for me, the AI. We talked about this earlier, that it might be the influence of someone involved in the experiment that's pushing the AI to produce the outcome of its analysis. It might not even be analyzing the data. Maybe it's just spitting out the outcome that correlates with the real outcome, because someone involved is pushing subconsciously, right? In which case, if you sell this to someone, you sell the business to them, then now maybe they don't have any psychic ability. That's why they're buying a system where other people provide this psychic information. They're not able to push the AI. So then the AI analysis all of a sudden is no longer spitting out an outcome that matches the behavior of the NASDAQ futures contracts. Right? Because it might not be remote viewing data at all. You could probably just take what if you could take all of the remote viewing data out and pretend that it's doing analysis on the RV data, but there's no RV data, and talk to your chat GPT as though it has analyzed data and say, based on your analysis of this imaginary data, what is the outcome? And you force it to give you an outcome. If you're pushing the machine, and your hit rate is 58%, and then you sell that to someone who has no psychic remote influencing ability, their hit rate is going to be break even. And if they have any kind of self-sabotage, it's going to be worse than break even, and they're going to lose money.
Yeah, so a couple of key points. One, again, they have a large sample size that's working in their favor. And there are other things we've already talked about that are interesting, counter intuitive results in different places where there's offsets that are not expected or whatever. So we talked about all that. But I'm trying to say is like the large sample size, that works in their favor. But the thing you're talking about, which I don't see, is a control of the AI and the different pieces, right? So if they had a control study on the different portions, like the viewer portion, the AI portion, and whatever other pieces are relevant, to try to understand a baseline relationship to what they're actually getting versus the control, that would be useful, right? So can people make money off of this and stuff? I don't know. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily participate in that at this point until I see more evidence, more data. And I'm very, data driven, so I'd want to see more.
No, because the AI is two things. It's the push component and also the AI analysis component. I like to test the push component. You would have to have, like, let's say it's Greg who's acting as the remote influencer without even knowing it, and he's pushing the AI to correlate its outcomes with the NASDAQ futures, but it's really his intent working with the matrix to produce that outcome. Then even if he sets up a study to test the AI versus an AI he's not directly interacting with, because the data stream is all the data in the reality. And when you're pushing the matrix, you're pushing reality. So like you'd have to do it in a way where he doesn't know it's happening. He doesn't know when it's happening. He's in no way involved at all. to be able to test it without his, because like I was saying earlier, I'm pushing on the initial lotto machine number generation, or I'm pushing reality so that it chooses the numbers that I chose, right? Instead of trying to see the future, I do, but I also sneaky try to push reality, right? Or push the machine. It doesn't matter how you see it. 5 weeks later, I'm thinking about something else. I'm living my life. I'm doing other things, but my initial push is still having that cascading effect. So Greg doesn't have to be involved, or doesn't have to be thinking about it, but his initial push will maybe still have an effect until he sells it, and now it's someone else's, and now there's a new pusher. And if that pusher can't push, then the AI analysis will be random chance potentially. Interesting. So this is why we wanted to talk to you about this, audience, people in chat, because I think it's concerning to me that there's the potential to buy this based on this study. I find that concerning because I wouldn't want anyone to be taken advantage of because they don't necessarily understand these intricacies. And I'm not saying Greg is exploiting people's naivete, because he probably hasn't. I don't know Greg. I don't know his experience with remote viewing. So I don't know if he's aware of these issues. Right? So maybe he doesn't know that all these things that we talked about tonight, and he just thinks he has a system now that he can sell that works or might make people money. But then I kind of think, I mean, then why aren't you keeping it for yourself, right? If you can cut the top 3% and make $750,000 profit on a $100,000 investment, why are you looking to sell that? Like, hold on to that. Unless you think you can sell it for, I don't know, 300 million. But again, if that's the plan, then you have to somehow be damn sure you can prove that it's going to work for someone else if you're going to sell it for more. Yeah. And then the other thing in the list, I'm just going to go back to the list so that I don't get too stuck on this one point. The last 2 points. So a comprehensive database of nearly 1 million remote viewing trials. So again, would an intel agency want to buy that to see who's who and what they're able to do? I don't know. But it would be useful maybe for universities that want to look at psi data, and I don't know. And then an end-to-end operational protocol that converts raw intuitive input into statistical consensus and real-world trades. And again, the problem with that is the saying that, oh, I've created a system that can convert all this random RV data into consensus. But we just showed that the consensus was wrong, right? Like the top 3% of strong consensus, you had to remove those to get a significantly better result. So saying I can get this automated system to give you a consensus, but then the consensus is wrong, that's a problem as well. So I love that they put the data out there for us to look at. I love that this is advancing the community, remote viewing. It's giving us ideas for further research. It's giving us all this data to do more and different experiments with. I don't like that they're trying to sell this at all as a turnkey system. I'm annoyed about that because I think you don't want to mislead people, especially in the psychic community, because so many people in the general public think psychics are scammers, grifters, liars, that they're fakes. And so if you contribute in any little way to anything that the general public will say, see, look, there's the evidence that they're trying to just be grifters. The whole remote viewing community's reputation gets tarnished even more than it already is. So you can't take on the responsibility for the reputation of a whole community, and you shouldn't. But at the same time, for me, I see this and I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about why is anyone looking to sell this as a turnkey system? Where you just buy this and now you have all your viewers, you have all your databases, you just automatically sends out the email to all the existing viewers when you're not sure if the person's going to lose another $30,000 over the next 4 months. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I think from the perspective of scientific, it makes sense to me. Like if you were going to, and everybody was in agreement because you got viewers and stuff. It's not just you, right? And I'm just thinking for myself out loud, but randomly in my thoughts in my head. But basically, offering some piece of that, not hey, we're going to make money, but hey, here's the research data, and here's an opportunity to continue the research, right? That part makes total sense to me. But in terms of the other part, like I said, that's way too high risk for me. That's all I'm saying.
And also, did the viewers give consent to their data being sold? I wouldn't want, and to anyone, right? Like there are some governments that I wouldn't want for them to have my skill level, my email address, my IP. I wouldn't want that in the hands of some intelligences of some countries. Some countries, I'd be like, whatever, you already have it.
Already got it.
Well, I was going to say the U.S. already has it, and that's okay. There's a couple other countries that already have that information. That's okay, but there's some countries that don't. That they would pay for it because it'll cost them less to buy it from Greg than to actually train their spies well enough or their hackers well enough to get that info themselves, right? So just something to think about. I hope that the viewers, and not just click the I agree after like scrolling through all this fine print that nobody ever reads. Like I'll hope that it was clearly explained that your data will be sold. Your RV ability will be sold. So just information. So just from chat, people are saying these results are not very trustable. I can create a generic RV impression and put the same text every time when it runs, and it will be able to make a hit. Talking about AI. Interesting. Thank you for that information. And then what does the Matrix control AI into making wrong judgments? Of course, yeah. It is reality. So if it's looking to establish equilibrium, it can use anything as its tools to do that. It can use people, it can use things, it can use the weather. It reminds me of a story of a downpour in Phoenix that someone told me once upon a time. So yeah, it can even use the weather. I think that this was a very in-depth, detailed analysis of a study. For most people who are maybe not on the spectrum traders, this is maybe a little bit too much, but I hope you got something out of it anyway, or I hope it was kind of entertaining. And then for those of us who are really detail-oriented and we really do like the data, I hope that we gave you enough of an overview, and you can download the PDF yourself and comb through it. But we pretty much presented all the information that's on there. And we did our best to explain it in terms that make it maybe hopefully more accessible. And again, this is not done to criticize. It is a critique, but not criticism. It's an academic / engineering critique where we go through and we look at what works, what doesn't work, what are the implications of this. And we're doing it in good faith for what we think of as the benefit of the community.
Yeah, and people can disagree with us. We might have misinterpreted something, or our expertise in a particular area is not so hot, or whatever. And you're like, hey, that was wrong, and you want to tell us we're wrong. That's fine, because I like to learn. If I make a mistake or something, that's cool. You can tell me. So I'm just saying, feel free to speak up if you disagree in some way strongly about some of the critical analysis or critical thinking that was done, assessing the information. And again, because we've already said it a bunch of times, but it's like, I think this was great for them to put this out. I think it's really fascinating. I think we learned a lot from it, and I appreciate it.
Yes. And Greg, Greg is the owner of the timemachine.com, and he's behind all of this. If there's anything here you want to correct, address, rebut, or if you just want to kind of discuss in a celebratory way, feel free. The invitation is open. And we can always do another live stream and have you come in and talk about our analysis. And like I said, maybe some of these things are new to you, so you maybe want to think about them for a bit and then come back and talk to us. That's fine too. So we're really open to that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you in chat. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rustam, for having the courage to come on air with us. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And let us know if you guys wanted us to do these kind of random Saturday night live streams now and then about different topics that are relating to the community. Because to me, this was fun, and I think it was really useful. So let us know if you thought so too.
So yeah, Sasha and I have conversations like this all the time, and it's on a wide variety of topics. It's not one particular thing. So we can deep dive. Personally, we'll deep dive into remote influencing, ARV, future predictions, precognition. Like it just runs a gambit of a bunch of stuff. So this was kind of, partially trying to see if people had any interest. This particular one might be very dry for some people. There could be some other ones that we talk about. There's no stats or data whatsoever. And it's more engaging, let's say, because it's more colorful and maybe emotional due to our own personal experiences getting involved in it. But yeah, let us know if these types of things are of some interest to you. And also, I'm not I'm not a sales guy or anything like that. I don't ever advertising marketing. I don't think about this stuff. I mean, I was technically in technical marketing. I did write articles that was considered technical marketing, but I was an engineer writing them. So I always forget this part, but Sasha does live streams. So this is a promo part, right? You can just tune out if you don't want to listen to this, but Sasha, she does live streams monthly. She has viewers come in. All you have to do is submit work. It's public. The information is put out there in the public. We have a Facebook group. I think it's Magic and Noise. We have Magic and Noise and Magic in the Noise, but I think it's Magic and Noise that it's our main one, right?
Yes, the
On
Magic
Facebook.
in the Noise is like a business profile page that Facebook forces you to do. But then in order to actually communicate with people, I created a personal page, and I had to use Magic and Noise. So that, and there are links somewhere here to that.
Yeah, so she'll post that information up on Facebook is one of the places you can find it. They're really cool. If you ever see any of them, she does analysis of the individual viewers. If you submit your work, and you can at least make target contact, and it doesn't matter what protocol you use, you just have to be able to hit target. So even if you're a natural psychic, we might be like, I don't know, maybe we have them on. If you get good enough data, it's got to be more than just a tiny little fragment, right? It's got to be at least a few points. But yeah, we'll have you on, and she'll analyze your work. And, I don't know what else do we say. We got a website that's the same name, Magic in the Noise, or in the Noise, and Patreon. I've got a couple of books, if you're bored out of your mind. And my books are not necessarily, I'm not going to say they're great. I just was the best I could do. But I have one for my ET alien contact experiences. It's a tiny book. I'm going to warn you right now before you buy it. But it is my experiences. You might find those interesting. The other one is I talk about direct visual perception, and that one's a bit thicker, where I go through kind of my assessment of the Intel community's influence over the remote viewing community in association with CRV, and it's a link to direct visual perception. And my experiences with direct visual perception. So it's kind of a combination book that kind of looks at the history of CRV, the model of CRV, how that relates to direct visual perception, the kinds of things that you might think about to do that, to actually see the target directly. Because for me, that's the key piece that I feel has been kept and suppressed intentionally for decades from the community. And so for me, it's unlocked powerful capabilities. And so if you're interested in that kind of thing, I have a book out there. It's on Amazon. You just got to look up my name. Like the book is called...
We'll put the links down below in the description.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So anything else you want to throw out there?
My training. So
Yes, of course.
I also teach. And in December, if you're one of our top tier patrons on our Patreon page, we're having a closed group only for top tier patrons, remote viewing group where I put out a target, and then only the top tier patrons can submit. And then only the people who submit can come to the hangout. And it's just so that people who are too shy, maybe to come to our YouTube live streams with their remote viewing data, they can still participate, but they don't have to worry about having an audience there. The only people in the hangout are other people who submitted, and the only people that can watch it are the top tier patrons. So it's just a way of giving you a few more options if you're a bit shy. My training is full spectrum illumination. It's a remote viewing method that I've developed through the years that I've had. I've learned different styles of remote viewing, working with David, talking with David, working with other really strong remote viewers in the community, and just with my own introspection and my own weird obsession with details. I have developed a system that works, and the people that I've trained have increased their remote viewing skills tremendously. So it works for others. It doesn't just work for me. And I was going to price it really low and open it up so that anyone, so that the affordability wouldn't be a stumbling block, and just do kind of an open call start in November. But I had some experiences on the remote viewing Discord server that convinced me that that was the wrong idea. And I don't have the temperament to deal with what would come from that. And I've decided to go exclusive, keep the price higher. What I have works, and the testimonials are on the website. And I can take you from where you are as a remote viewer to the next level or 2 or 3 of your ability. And I've done it for others. I've definitely done it for myself. I've definitely done it for my students. And so if you're interested, send me a message. But know that I'm not doing the $200 for the Introduction to FSI course that I had planned for November. I think I'd rather keep it exclusive and know that the people that I'm teaching are vetted, that they're only going to use it that they're not going to use it for bad things, that they're not going to use it against other people, that they won't use it to remote influence negatively. And just that I like them as humans. I've realized that I don't want to teach people that I think are morally bankrupt how to be better at psychic remote viewing. That's what I've discovered about myself.
So let me say a few things about Sasha. Sasha's training is one-on-one. This is something you have to understand. It's really critical. So it's very intensive. She's with you every step of the way. The other thing about it is, I have seen it. It's, again, I've been around the community for a couple of decades. I've had a bunch of different types of training. I've seen other people's training. I have seen her actually take people at a certain skill level, and I can significantly see the actual step up in the quality of their work. It's significant. I'm not joking around. It's like very obvious. And they will also see it too. And this is why she's got some good testimonials. So, can she do that for every person? I don't know. But I'm saying I'm seeing this as something that I've not seen before, and she's done it with multiple people. Most people that give the training do not give any kind of effort or guarantee or thought in that direction. They're just more focused on, hey, I'm going to give you training and whatever happens kind of thing. She's literally trying to upgrade your skill level, and I have actually seen that with multiple people. So that's just one point. The other point is that I say frequently, so if you've seen this a million times, is I'm going to say it again because I don't care. Sasha is a certified genius. So she's the real deal in terms of intellect. So this is part of, in my opinion, this is part of why her training is so effective, because there is a lot more thought and deeper critical thinking that's gone into trying to optimize the result to get people as far as they can in the shortest period of time. And like she said, she's worked with a bunch of people. I'm one of them. So yeah, some of my thinking, it is her work, the training. So I don't want it to I'm not trying to steal her training or say that I was the one that made it, because I didn't. But she has incorporated some of the thinking. So from me, so I'm saying anything that she sees work, she tests stuff. That's just how I work too. I test everything. If it doesn't work, I don't use it. Why bother, right? So she's taken some of the stuff and she's like, hey, this works. Or wherever she finds stuff that works, she'll make it work, and then she'll incorporate it into the training. So I'm saying it's vetted stuff. So I don't know what to say about that, but I'm telling you, if you ever get the training, it's going to be good.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. And I do personalize it, and yeah, so there is a vetting system, and part of it is, do I think you're ethical? That's a big part of it. I don't like that there's so many unethical people running around using psychic remote influencing and even remote viewing. So yeah. And on that note, thank you guys. This was fun. David, thank you. This was fun. You held up. David was really tired when we started. He's like, I'm going to fade out at some point and have to go.
She's like, hey, do you want to do this thing? I'm like, sure.
And both David and I are sensitive to the bright lights. So I think that's the biggest challenge. But yeah, so this was fun. I enjoyed myself. David, thank you so much. And thank you for
thank you. And somebody's asking, title of the book, Beyond the Veil of Sight is one of them on Amazon. Second one is called Project Phase Shift. And then it has a Latin name, which I'll let you find out for yourself what it is.
And David put the links in the description on YouTube as soon as we're done here. So that pops up right away. Thank you guys. We'll do this again soon, I hope. To everyone still watching, thanks for staying with us. This was a really fun Saturday night, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Bye.